This is our third meeting of the advisory committee for the bond for Beaumont. What I like to do is we still getting new people. I think this is we're gonna level out right now. So I'll start to my left, Safe. We'll go back around. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then the last thing you tell us about is why did you say yes to this committee? Thank you, man. We'll get started with you.
Start with me?
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate being on the board, and Mr. Crenshaw very graciously asked me to be on the board, and I'm alongside with Mr. Taylor Neild. So my father has been a little bit more active than I have in the city, and I've kind of taken up the example. If you know Taher Qureshi, he ran for city council a couple times and pretty active. But the reason I got involved is I really wanted to participate. I have a background having studied finance, did my education in business, and I want to kind of bring all of the resources and help that I can to really help make the city better, and hopefully represent maybe some of the people that aren't you know, typically at these types of meetings.
Real good.
Yep.
Thank you, man. So
Thank you.
very much. One guy that does not need an introduction, but Taylor, tell us what's up, man.
My name is Taylor Neild. I previously served on the Beaumont City Council for the past 6 years. I also own a local industrial construction company here in town. I sat on the original council that set the original, or helped set the original committee for this. And I said yes because I've had some concerns on the budget for many years for the city of Beaumont, and just want to sit on here and make sure that we're doing things the transparent way and putting the stuff out for the community. One of the other things that I'm passionate about is making sure that this committee can put information back to the council that they are going to support. I don't have high hopes on the council supporting everything that we put forward, which is fine, but it needs to be done in a transparent way that we're not all wasting our time sitting up here. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Okay. Mr. LaBeach? He's not here. Joseph.
My name is Joe Majdalani. Glad to be here. Thank you, Councilman, for appointing me. I live in Beaumont for the last 35 years and raised my family here in Beaumont. I worked for the city of Beaumont for 21 years. Beaumont was good to me. Reason I wanted to be on this committee, I have a lot of good experience, institutional knowledge, and I work under 4 mayors here in Beaumont. I have a good construction, management, and engineering background. I can shed some light on some of the projects and just pay back to the community. Thank you.
All right. And so I guess we're about to turn it over to you, and I'm going to use a word that Jeff used a couple of weeks ago. See, I'm listening to everything you say. Jeff said we're going to drill down today. So Jeff, let's start drilling down a little bit.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the new members of the committee, welcome. Again, my name is Jeff Barton. I'll introduce myself a little bit more, but just want to remind you we have a lot of city resources here. June Ellis is here, and June, maybe you just want to mention there are a lot of other city resources behind this project.
June Ellis, Assistant City Manager, and the city has been working on putting together a 5-year community investment plan for the last 2.5 years, actually. So the community investment plan is really what's driving and what will drive a lot of these projects that you will begin hearing from or about today. So, but it takes a team of city employees, and there are a number of city directors who work to put together the 5-year community investment plan, and many of them are sitting behind you and to your right and left. So throughout this entire process, there will be numerous city employees who will assist you with any questions that you have.
Thank you.
All right. We also have some other city resources that some of you have met, like Dustin Taylor and Derek Mitchell, the bond counsel and the financial advisor. And then again, my name is Jeff Barton. I am an AICP nationally certified planner. My business partner, Kara Buffington, is leading the public engagement. Joey Ochoa is a senior planner for us who's deeply involved in looking at the numbers and some of the projects. We have a whole like the city, we've got another team behind us back at the office. So, again, for those of you new, you should have some binders that we've given you that are a good place to keep presentations, other information that we'll be providing throughout the process. I think for those of you who are bringing your binders back this time, you should have tonight's presentation that you can make notes on. Kara reminds me that it may be easier this time. I said, take your placards or leave them, and I think she's telling me just stick them in your notebook and bring them back with you. That'd be easier for everybody. So, Mr. Chairman, tonight, as you said, we're going to begin diving down the last two meetings. For those of you who are joining us, I think you may have gotten a message from us. We'd be glad to bring you up to speed at some point if you'd like. I know some of you may have watched the presentations, and we'd be glad to meet with you independently to go through in more detail what those first meetings were like. We'll have a very, very brief recap tonight. And then we will talk about the universe of potential projects. We started talking about that the last two meetings, especially the last meeting. We promised to bring that to you narrowed down some, and I think we've accomplished that, at least as a place to start the discussion. Then we've got a presentation from Parks and Trails, and we have also a presentation from Facilities tonight. And we will then move into some real prioritization and discussion, just initial sense of what you think are the critical issues there. We'll do a little training exercise on how we're going to vote when we need to. We'll kind of see where we are as a group. So again, really, just want to get the new members onboarded tonight. We'll have these big presentations and begin real discussion, this real deep dive that we talked about, Mr. Chair. This recap, just very briefly, for those of you who just joined us, and to remind those of us who were here last time. At the last meeting, we talked about bonds as being a way to spread investment over 20 years that are frequently used by cities. Of course, it's been a long time since you've done one here in Beaumont, since about 1983. And we talked about how these are repaid. We heard from your financial advisor and your bond counsel. A couple of people asked also, well, a few things, just to remind you. We talked about $5. Is it hard to hear? Oh, I'm not usually told that I'm hard to hear, so I was toning it down a little. So if the city council were to decide, if you guys were to decide to recommend a bond package, and you were to move forward, we talked about a few dollar amounts. You know, $5 a month for the average homeowner would generate about $86–87 million. $10 a month on the average home, about $158 million, and $15, just as an example, about $228 million, and so on. That breaks down to roughly, according to your financial advisor, about 4.5 cents on the tax rate for a $5 increase, and that would be something like 9 cents for a $10 a month increase, and so on. About 4.5 to 5 cents per every $5 a month. So we also talked last time about your community survey. I'm going to scream through it really fast for the new members, and also follow up with a few slides of additional information. So again, we had really good response from the survey. You know, for example, some of your other departments, when you've done some other surveys in town, you've gotten 600, 700. So we got a very strong community response. We worked hard at that between the city and our team. It was, people could fill it out on paper or live, which most people, online, most people did. Just under 3,000 participants. And we asked them several questions about, for example, what's the most important thing Beaumont can do in the next few years? A lot of people said invest in basic infrastructure, roads and sidewalks. As we analyzed those, really that sense of what's a basic infrastructure was pretty broad, because a lot of people then cited some of these other big programs. And you can see there were a lot of people for parks all the way to say, we offered as an option, just keep taxes low or take a wait and see approach. Just a reminder that 65-year-olds and over represented a significant portion of those who wanted to keep taxes low, even though a majority of over 65 really did want to see something happen. And then, well, you can see, just as some of you asked for some comparisons from some other cities. So this is a city that we did recently where include, for example, smaller, but here in the Houston area, 29% or almost 30% said their number one priority was keep taxes low. And then in the city of Beaumont, where I know June worked before, we did their project, and about 24%, 23% said their number one priority was to keep taxes low. So as we move forward, we'll be giving you some additional kind of crosstabs tonight and in other meetings. But in Beaumont, for example, where you had a higher percentage saying keep taxes low, they ended up passing almost a $90 million bond by a very strong margin. So other questions? Are you inclined to support issuing bonds? We talked about this last time. You have a range of people from yes, absolutely, no matter what, all the way to sure if I like the projects, and no, I'm not interested. You can see those numbers here. As we discussed, there were a few differences in age groups and in some of the demographics. I think we discussed among white folks, for example, more likely to say yes no matter what, but also more likely to say no, absolutely not. Among black folks, more likely to say, yeah, I'll consider it, but I really want to know what the projects are. How much would you be willing to pay per month? That was the plurality of about 51% saying they're willing to support $10 a month. And for those of you who are new, we talked about, use this as an indicator. This is not a random scientific poll. It is a real strong indicator, but it is not a random scientific poll. And also, people didn't get a lot of background before they answered these questions. Where would you like to see leaders put their priorities? So we asked some similar questions in different ways just to kind of tease out some of that detail. Roads were the top issue in every ward in the city, and across most of the or all of the demographics, actually. So in comparison, you can see roads got mentioned by about 78% of students, constituents here, or poll respondents. In Beaumont, for example, it was much less. It was split across other priorities. In some of the other cities and counties that we've worked in, we've seen a similar dynamic. Roads are almost always popular, particularly popular, that infrastructure, roads and sidewalks here in Beaumont. And those are both also bonds that ended up passing by a pretty significant margin. We also discussed, for some of you, I know you've now heard this a few times, but we discussed the way that we approach this discussion with a community-based consent, really a technique that we developed that's based on a special program out of Harvard that Kara, my business partner, worked with Dr. William Urey there. We've tweaked that really through our experience here in Texas on what we call, again, community-based consent, talking about community interests, balancing those against your own personal interests, not necessarily what nobody is, as I think the councilman alluded to, probably nobody gets everything they want, but what can you live with and what do you think is best for the community? And then one last reminder of our little iceberg motif here that really positions are those things that are above the surface, those things that you may think you want or somebody may say first, but often most of us in these kinds of settings have some deeper interests that may stay below the surface at first. So our job is to help tease those out, and all of our jobs is to be tolerant as we talk about those deeper interests, because that's where sometimes there's a little friction. We'll be, so the underlying reason why demands are important to you, and I used I think before this analogy that you may say that your position is that the Houston Astros need to hit more home runs, but you don't really care. That's your position, but your real interest is that Houston win more games, and you don't really care what it takes to win more games. So keep that in mind as we work through this. The idea is to build consensus wherever possible. That's really how we operate, pretty informally. We will move to this kind of community-based consent as we go along, like, okay, this may not be what you love, but can you live with it? Can we all agree on this being best for the community? And then we'll do votes where necessary. We also have some tools that we'll introduce tonight to help move conversation along. So I know I'm moving really fast, but that's just the 2-minute recap. Projects. We talked about this idea that we're going to be, funneling down. We've already begun that process, right? We're sifting through the different plans. You heard Mr. Ellis allude to the community investment plan that the city has prepared. There's a strategic plan. There's a parks plan. When you take all of those, there's something like $1.2 billion in projects or potential need out there. As we discussed last time, to give you all a better place to start, we've begun to narrow that down. And when we think about how that will be presented on a bond, then there's some flexibility in how those propositions might be put together. Sidewalks could be with roads, for example, or sidewalks and roads could be two independent propositions. The rule essentially is that you can't stack a bunch of unpopular stuff with popular stuff just to get it passed. And then the Attorney General's office has some complex rules that go around that. So like projects can be grouped together. We've got a bond council that'll be overseeing that to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's in that respect. And from that $1.2 billion, as we begin to look at ways that some things can be paid for elsewhere, that some things can be deferred, that some things are already being paid for by the City Council out of this budget, then utilities, for example, kind of have their own, has their own bucket, you might say. Then we get down to something like this, just very roughly what we're talking about, right? Of things that need to have some serious discussion around whether this belongs in a bond package for the city of Beaumont, in parks and trails, in facilities, infrastructure downtown, large projects that could be considered as one of those or might be standalone projects. And that total comes into, somewhere between $250 and $350 million, roughly. So that's the universe that we start with, but as we said several times in those first two meetings, that doesn't preclude you from going to those projects that we've said can probably wait, and if you think they need to happen right now, you can highlight those and ask the group to bring them forward. So, with all of that, we've asked the Parks and Trails Department to be here to give you a presentation about why they've prioritized certain projects over others and how that process unfolded. I'll get this out of your way since you're going to have that. And the clicker's right here. You might just
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Reguette, and I'm the Director of Parks and Green Space Management. Our parks are the heart and soul of our community, serving as gathering places and vibrant hubs for recreation for individuals and families alike. Looking ahead, we recognize the need to ensure that our parks continue to thrive, evolve, and meet the diverse needs of our dynamic population. Our focus is on creating accessible, inclusive, and sustainable spaces that benefit not only today's residents, but also future generations. To do this, we need a plan. And this is a little bit about our parks plan that we started back in 2024, the summer. Half associates came out and worked not only with city staff, but also there was a steering committee that was appointed by city council. We had focus groups, 2 open houses where citizens were able to come out and tell their wants, needs, desires for the Parks Department. It was a long process. Like I said, it started in 2024, the summer. We had quite a bit of public engagement. Recommendations were put together by staff, city members, as well as HAF with their assessments of our local park system, and they came up with a plan for us. What we heard, residents shared strong support for upgrades to existing parks, trails, connections, and facilities for kids, teens, and adults. We have a total of 36 parks plus 2 trails. A lot of improvement needs to be made in our parks. Picnic areas, the restrooms, and mostly our playgrounds are a big issue. So key findings, there's a need for more neighborhood and community parks in Beaumont. Not enough parks within walking distance for many neighborhoods. A 10-minute walk is what is recommended by parks councils around the country. And right now we don't have in each area availability of parks for people to take a walk in less than 10 minutes. The city currently has a 9-mile trail deficit. Many parks lack restrooms, shade, trails, and ADA compliant features. There's a high need for more programming, opportunity to use parks as tools to improve the health of our community as well. So goals for the future of the Beaumont parks. The plan goals were developed from input received from the community and are relative of all the overall vision that we have for our park system. First goal is park system investments, enhance and modernize Beaumont's existing parks. Goal 2, park system access. Beaumont parks will be safe, comfortable, and accessible by all. Goal 3, recreational programming. We need to build upon that. Goal 4, operation and maintenance. Support efficient operations of our park system. This is part of our CIP, what we identified in the Parks Department. Still some numbers that hadn't been updated on this particular one. But playground replacement needs. Right now we have 9 different parks where we need to replace our playgrounds. They're in desperate need of replacement. They've aged out. And in some aspects are really becoming unsafe to have inside of our Parks Department. And
Renovated, 3, 4, 2, 6?
since I've been in parks the last 2 years, we put in 4 new
4 new.
playgrounds. Yes.
And so you say it's a need of 9
Yes.
total?
Immediate need of 9. We really have 13 that need to be replaced, but 9 we need to replace immediately
Okay, thank you.
or as soon as possible.
I have a question. When you say need to be replaced immediately, is that due to safety concerns?
Safety concerns is the biggest factor.
Okay, what other factors, since you said, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Just old
Okay,
and just not up to par what we need in our park system. You know, if we're looking forward to build better quality of life for our citizens, they need upgrading. There's a lifespan of about, I think about 10 to 15 years is the lifespan on most playgrounds. We have playgrounds that have been there for 20 years. So they've basically just aged out.
and a couple of other questions. It went back a couple of slides. I know you referenced that the recommendation is 10-minute walk to a park per se. Do we have an idea of where we currently are? Are we 20 minutes? Do we have any idea of anything like that?
Estimate of 21 minutes
21.
in certain areas. Certain areas you have 10 minutes or less.
Okay.
Ward 1 and 2 is your longest walk to a park.
Ward 1 and Ward 2?
1 and 2.
And last one, and I apologize.
No problem.
When you said there's a 9-mile trail deficit, where does that come from?
It's per capita, and right now we're lacking 9 miles of trails per 1,000 citizens.
Mr. Samuels, I love your questions, man. You don't have to apologize for asking. You got a question. Anybody else? Please
I have
do.
a question. You say you have some parks that are unsafe. How do you all handle that? If they're deemed unsafe, do you close them or?
Well, maybe unsafe is not the correct word, but we continuously do maintenance on them.
Okay.
So when an issue arrives, a citizen goes out, they can call 311 and say, you know, something is wrong with the playground. We go out and try to repair it. But there's been so many repairs, some repairs we can't even repair properly. We're just putting Band-Aids. So this is our CIP projects. The ones that are highlighted in blue are new and identified in our Parks Master Plan. Splash pads. We have 10 splash pads in the city. We constantly have issues with our splash pads as well. The biggest culprit is that all of the mechanics are located underground. So we'd like to take everything and lift them up and put them above ground like we did at Charlton Pollard Park last summer. ExxonMobil gave a grant to the city. Part of those funds was used to upgrade that splash pad. We've had very little issues with the splash pad since bringing all the electrical components above ground. So that's what we'd like to do with the 9 remainder splash pads, as well as we have 5, the rubber flooring also needs to be replaced. City pools. We have 2 very old pools, constant maintenance issues. One problem we have is we don't have a local vendor or contractor to do the big projects on our pools. So we have to wait for someone to come out of Houston. We were just able to get the contractor out to get our Magnolia pool up and running for the summer. Right at the last minute, they were able to come out and get us going. So we'd like to get funds in order to get our pools in shape. Now, a lot of cities are opting out, either decreasing the number of pools they have or eliminating pools altogether and going with larger splash pads. Some park amenities that we look at for the future that we'll need. Signage. A lot of our signage is old, faded, has been damaged, and we come across those signs, we'd like to change those out to the new gray signs that you see, especially around here at the event center, so everything can be more cohesive. Trash receptacles. Most everything we have in our park system is really just aging out. So if you walk through our parks, you'll notice most of our trash cans need to be replaced, as well as benches, picnic tables. Tables today, you can get ADA compliant tables, which we don't have. Pavilions. We have numerous parks that have the old wooden structures that need replacement. We have put in new pavilions at Sprott Park and Rogers Park within the last year or so. And we'd like to mimic those throughout 16 parks. Restrooms. Some of our restrooms need a total upgrade, inside and outside. Some parks we don't have any restroom facilities, and that was a big concern that came back from our master plan.
The goal to have security or video cameras at all the parks, or selected parks, or what?
All parks.
All parks.
All
That's a wish list.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a wish list. High-use parks and future park sites. I think before the city can expand its park system, it is essential to address the needs of existing high-use parks that are experiencing significant increases in public activity. Klein Park and Wuthering Heights are 2 examples of that. Klein Park, there's a lot of new apartment complexes that have gone around, as well as new neighborhoods have been popping up around that area. There's no playground inside of Klein Park. They do have a nice walking trail. Tennis court is there, but it needs an upgrade, as well as the restroom facilities. So a nice playground would be nice in that location. Wuthering Heights is another busy park. Right now, there's only a walking trail. It could use more parking, as well as a playground and restrooms. And here we talk about security inside of our parks.
Okay.
And also having Wi-Fi in a couple of our parks would also help out, because a lot of people don't have Wi-Fi at home.
Now, are you saying you do have Wi-Fi in the park?
We would like to have Wi-Fi. Yes, ma'am. And this is a conceptual design for Terrell Park, which now has been re-envisioned into more of a regional park. So this is some things that was designed to be placed in Terrell Park, and that's the far back end of the park. Multi-age playground, pickleball courts, splash pad, amphitheater, cricket patch, outdoor classrooms, trails, really a beautiful concept. You go online and take a look at the Parks Master Plan. You can see the concepts of it. It's very nice. And actually just read the Parks Master Plan, because there's a lot that was built into it And this basically will be the blueprint that we'll have as staff to work with for the next 5 to 10 years. Collier's Ferry, another park that's a diamond in the rough. I don't know if everyone has visited Collier's Ferry, but it's at the really wide end of the Nature's River. You don't even feel like you're in Beaumont. But there's a lot that needs to be done in there. Replacing the playground, upgrades to the restroom. We'd like to put concrete walking path out there instead of the gravel because, as you probably know, we do experience a lot of flooding there. So that would help stabilize that area. New trash cans and picnic tables, pavilion, and things like that. So, are there any questions or any more questions?
I got a question. When do you plan on assigning costs to all this wish list?
I didn't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
When will you have costs assigned to each one of these line items?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Councilman, we did talk about that last time. Later tonight, we'll be talking about specific costs.
Okay, so when you give us the cost, are you also going to give us future maintenance for these added items?
I think that's something that we can talk about as you go, no, because essentially the answer is no, because I think that's a discussion that we need to have, but it won't be part of the bond package, right? Those maintenance costs will be wrapped up into your, as you know, your operating budget, so we're really focused on just what the bond cost will be. But obviously, some of them do have bigger maintenance costs than others.
But I think it's a cost that the citizens and this committee need to know what they are because it does directly affect the budget for years to come.
And I think that's something that, you know, we can put to the staff, about, you know, which of these costs are. I think what we would like to do is see, before we give the cost of these, we don't know which ones you want to move forward with yet. So let's decide which ones you might want to move forward with yet, and we can have a discussion about which of those bring high costs.
All right, and one more question. So on one of these previous slides, you were talking about 2 or 3 new additional parks. Could you maintain that with the current staff that you already have?
I would say yes,
Okay.
because really what we'd have to do is pick up litter inside of the parks, and we can pick up 2 more parks in order just to pick up litter.
Good deal. Thank you.
All right.
I have a question for you. You look at the parking lot, you look at the facilities inside the park. Have you looked at the drainage within the facility?
We have looked at the drainage in the facilities. Street and drainage would help us with that, but also when we have the parks master plan, like for the concept plan that they have for Terrell Park, the drainage was looked into that and we're going to that concept. Some of our parking lots, especially like Collier's Ferry, we do experience flooding, so that is an issue there.
Have you factored the cost of improvement into your cost? If you need drainage improvement or anything?
Oh, drainage improvement, yes.
Everything
It'll
is
be factored,
included.
yes. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right.
Next, we're going to hear about facilities, and just to remind you how this is going to work, feel free to ask questions just as you did. Hope you'll continue to do that. And we'll have short questions afterwards. Then we get to discussion, and then you can have more questions, more back and forth. We'll be bringing out the spreadsheet that you all saw last time that has the numbers attached. We bring that back out. And one last reminder that tonight is not the last bite of the apple.
Yes,
We're going to do a preliminary ranking today for those who are new. We'll just kind of put them in buckets like, yes, definitely interested in this, not sure, or maybe, and then no, not interested in this going forward. And from that, we can then get you the information you may come to. And I think how we're going to hear about golf course.
Good evening, everyone. I've only got one thing to show you. My name is Jimmy Neal. I'm the Director of Recreation, so we'll get to facilities shortly. I think I've got five or 6 minutes to go through on this, so I'll try not to bore you and read the slides, but let's see what we can do here. So if you've been to our golf course, if you've been out to Henry Homburg, if you've just been to Terrell Park in general, you know drainage is an issue. The center of the park, inside the loop, is always full of water. The golf course is really not a whole lot different. So I'd like to first say to keep in mind that no capital improvements have taken place at the golf course since 1999. It's a long time. The last improvement that did take place was new greens. That was, again, 26 years ago. You'll see in a slide coming up here in a few minutes that the typical lifespan of a green, it says on here 20 to 30 years. Really, that depends on the type of grass that you have. With the type of grass and surface that we have, it's expected about 15 to 20. Again, we're at 26. So the greens are essentially the lifeblood of your golf course, and if you start to lose those, you lose everybody. So that's a concern that we have for sure. So what we did, and this slide will explain a little bit in a moment, in 2023, council approved about $1.4 million to be spent inside the Parks and Recreation Department. Of that, about $125,000 went to a drainage study. We got a golf course design firm out of Houston. They're called Finger Die Span, and they came and did this study. It took them about a year, a lot of engineering, a lot of stuff that's way over my head. But what they did is this. This was their job for the study. They're going to study the existing course drainage, see kind of what short-term and long-term improvements, review what else we have, irrigation cart paths. You'll see that those things are issues. Determine what the best thing we can do with the golf course, and then come up with probable cause for maybe improving the course or redoing, which again you'll see here momentarily. So I'm going to give you three options. All right, this is where we start talking about money. This is the fun part. Option one, you take the course as is. You use internal staff, which would be streets and drainage, engineering, parks and rec, people with shovels, just anything you can do to take what we currently have and try to make it a little bit better. You would see regrade and remove some of the silt and debris, increase the size of the culverts. Most of you in this room, it wasn't important to you to go see Henry Homburg Golf Course when Hurricane Harvey hit. It was very important to me. So I pulled up and it was a river. You pulled into the street, the main road, Terrell Park Drive or Babes Harris Drive, and both sides it was water all the way up. It was stunning. It was pretty cool to see, but it's not what you wanted. Now granted, there's nothing the golf course could have done about that. That was a little bit of a special 100-year storm, as we said. So these are the things that could be done if we don't spend any real capital dollars. Now keep in mind, those greens are in 26 years right now. So if we don't do any of these options that I'm going to present here shortly, we're going to need to spend some money on the greens and tees eventually. Here's just kind of a little bit of a background to what you expect from different parts of a golf course, how long they last. I'm not going to bore you with it, not going to read the whole thing, but you see the first thing, greens, 15 to 30 years. Look down, tees, 15 to 20. Again, we're past that. Okay, this is where we were a little bit surprised. So when the study began, the first thing they told me is this is the flattest piece of property they've ever seen on a golf course except for one piece in League City. He said the largest slope we had was a 3% grade, and that was probably running off of one green to the cart path. It's kind of like putting a golf course on this floor and saying, okay, drain, have fun with it. So they were shocked at that, and so they came up with a lot of ideas. Our irrigation system is in bad shape. Most of it's 20 to 40 years old. If we want to put water on the greens and the fairways, it's got to be manned. Someone has to come out, put the thing in the ground, turn the water on. When we're done, turn it off, move to the next hole. Most golf courses, heck, most houses, you can control it easier than that. So that's obviously a problem. You can't see this very well. I wish you could, but it's a huge sheet of paper. I pretty much keep this one on me at all times to show anybody and everybody who's interested. I can make copies of it, give it to you. It's an incredible plan. This is option 3. Let's get to option 2. Okay? You see here, bottom right of the screen, that's what I'll talk about in a second with the new driving range. That is presently holes 7, 8, and 9. That will become a driving range. Okay, option 2. Option 2 is going to be take the existing course as is, tees, greens, no rerouting, no redesign, and come in, redo the greens, redo the tees, completely redo the irrigation system, which is going to be irrigation, $3.6 million, just on the existing golf course. If you keep it as is, we're looking to spend almost $4 million just to upgrade the irrigation, okay? This total is $14.5 million. It's a big ticket. We understand that. Again, keep in mind, we've had no capital improvements in over 25 years at that golf course. Okay? Do I go back that way? There we go. Here is option 3. This is where you get to see that. This is a redesign of our golf course. These ponds you see down here, currently there's one. We're going to tie in, make it larger. It's going to give us an opportunity for water that drains off the course. It's going to go into these ponds. We can reuse it. It's it's more efficient. I was going to say very much more efficient. That's probably not very proper. Okay, so there's what you see for option 3. Presently, our driving range is about 150 to 175 yards. Coach Lou, I know you hit your 3-iron 220, so that won't fit you. It does not fit many golfers to get on that driving range. So as we said, they're going to take holes 7, 8, 9, bottom right corner, make a driving range there, 300-plus yard driving range. That will fit. Dr. Joe, you'll be able to hit your clubs. That's perfect for you. Me, I'm an old guy. I'm not any good anymore, so I don't need that much room, but everybody else does. So this option is incredible. It's something that we would become a regional destination. It would be a course that people are going to, instead of leaving here to go to Lake Charles or Baytown or Houston to go play, those guys are going to come here and play. So that's what we've got. Those are our options. I know it's a big ask. I know it's a big dollar, but it's something that if we care about our golf course, if we want this place to be something that people are going to come to and spend their dollars and spend their time, this is where we're at. All right, that's it for me.
Okay, we're running on schedule. Thank you very much. So we've heard from Parks and Trails, Recreation, and now from Facilities.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenny Smith, and just to clear up any confusion, I never played for the Houston Rockets, and the only dunking that I do is cookies over the weekend with my kids, so
Kenny Smith.
everybody was confused. All right, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Facility Maintenance here at the City of Beaumont. Our department is responsible for the maintenance and the vertical construction of the city-owned facilities here, and our responsibility is ensuring safe, functional, and equipped to support the vital services for the city of Beaumont. We range from servicing police to fire stations to libraries, community centers, museums, theaters, as well as event centers. Our team works behind the scenes that keeps the infrastructure of the city running smoothly. So today, we'll be providing an overview of several of the important facility-related projects under consideration, including both some of our current needs, immediate needs, as well as some of our future planning needs. These projects reflect our short and long-term goals, and we're committed to sustainability, operational efficiency, and public service. So to begin our presentation, I'll hand the mic over to Matt Fortenberry, and he's going to give you an update on our proposed animal care and adoption facility.
And Mrs. Smith, real quick. As
Sure.
you go through these projects, are any of these already a part of any other plans, or would all of this be asked for under the bond?
These are currently being asked for. These projects that I'm presenting are currently being asked for under the bond specifically. And they are a part of our CIP.
Okay.
Here's Matt.
All right. Thank you for having us. My name is Matt Fortenberry. I met most of you here, but if not, I'm the manager of Beaumont Animal Care. My goal tonight is to convince you of our need for a new animal facility, animal care facility and adoption center. So to get started, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and where we're going. We're the region's largest and most modern full-service animal care and control agency. We consist of a staff of approximately 26 staff members when we're fully staffed. Right now, we have 10 full-time staff members, 10 part-time, and 6 summer interns. And our functions and services, not only do we do animal control in the field, but we also provide public awareness programs, spay and neuter programs, vaccinations, and other summer intern programs. All of this on top of our animal quarantines, stray animal holds, and of course fostering and adoptions, those programs including transports to other parts of the country. And public interest. Really, to gauge public interest, I need to tell you where we came from. So give a little bit of history of animal control from my standpoint. I first became an animal control officer here in Beaumont in 1993. Back then, we were primarily for public safety and had a staff of a total of 8 people. And that included 1 kennel attendant that was responsible for cleaning the whole shelter. And that's, as you saw by our other numbers, that's greatly increased now, but our facility has not. Gradually, we started involving and became more concerned for not only the public safety, but animal welfare. And this is when I became the city's first certified animal cruelty investigator. In about 2008 to 2009, we had a huge shift in public support and the way people viewed animals. And then I became the manager of animal care in 2009. We grew from adopting, and this number is going to seem staggering, but in 2008, we had only adopted 28 animals. In 2009, less than a year, we had increased that to 109 animals adopted out, to where we are currently with over 3,700 animals being adopted. Average yearly, we handle 4,000 animals in our facility. And that is a lot of animals for the limited space we have, but we're doing the best we can, but we're trying to increase it and improve our functions. The goal is to have a 90% save rate, which across the nation, that's what people consider no kill. You have to have at least 90% save rate. Currently, as of April of this year, we're sitting at 93.8%. So we're very proud of that. So our current facility was built around 1980, so that puts it at 45 years old. The current square footage is 7,500, roughly square feet. The maximum capacity currently is 96 dogs and 45 cats. And that can put us at a total of maximum animals, give or take a few, at 141 animals on any given day. Then our maximum length of stay is 45 days. Now, most of our animals cycle out quicker than that if we can get them adopted and pushed out. But just visualize when we take in 5 to 25 animals per day, and we can hold them up to 45, that is a large number and can become even larger. What we lack is space for the animals. When this shelter, our current shelter, was designed, it was designed primarily as just as a holding facility, not as a true adoption facility with the public outreach programs and that type services. Our current shelter lacks adequate ventilation, which hinders disease control. We lack adequate protection from the elements in the wintertime. The screen's kind of bright, but if you look at the photograph on the bottom right, in the winter when the wind's blowing and it gets below 32, we're currently having to put up tarps. You can see that the tarp lines the whole side of the building, and that's between us and facilities maintenance, to keep the wind from hitting the animals that's housed on the outside runs. And then, of course, the slide on the left is just the several dogs in the pen. We need more space for our staff. our current break room serves many purposes. It should be a break room for the staff to be able to have their meals in and things like that, but we're having to use it as a baby puppy and kitten ward. That's where some of the staff members may have to go bottle feed the animals. So you have animals being bottle fed while somebody's trying to eat their lunch. There's not enough parking spaces. We did have a slide, but it's not in the program. When we have an adoption event, we can have like maybe 20 people come in at once to look at animals, and they're having to park outside the facility out on the street because our parking lot only has room for 6 to 8 vehicles. And then, of course, when we have public events, like I just mentioned, we can have so many people that they won't all fit in the lobby of the shelter. So this is an aerial view of our current facility. If you look at the cars at I guess the top left, that's the current parking lot. And when that lot is full, only place left to park is up and down Marina. And we've even had them stopping out on Pine Street, on Pine Street is kind of a danger because people come around the curve pretty fast. So with the new facility, we would look for increased space and capacity. On the bond proposal, it's currently listed at 18,000 square feet. This number would not really increase our capacity, but would allow us to house animals individually. Right now, with our main runs, we're having to house animals together. We have multiple, up to 4 animals in a pen. And ideally, if you go look at the Humane Society, they can do 1 animal per kennel. If this moves forward, we would look at a design company that would provide more realistic number of the actual square footage needed to increase our capacity as well as housing the animals efficiently. We would have space for training room / education room. And also a meeting space because sometimes we'll host classes. I've also taught animal care or animal control continuing education classes. So our meeting room would also serve as a training room for that. We would have a true break room, adequate parking for both staff and the public, and then, of course, efficient laundry rooms. Let me go back. Okay. Disease control and necessities. The new shelter would provide for sound control, proper floor drainage, proper air purification systems, maintainability for the staff, adequate lighting, which makes it inviting for the adopters and the public to come in and view the animals. Then, of course, disease control. And then increased adoptions. Even though we're adopting out 3,700 animals, including the transfers to rescues, this new facility would allow us more adequate play yards to give animals more socialization, more meet and greet spaces. We would also have like an adoption room where you could take an animal in and interact with it to see if it's a fit for your family when you're adopting. So all of these are very beneficial. So if you're looking at the data in comparison for cost, this is just a small chart just comparing us to a city roughly almost the same size as Beaumont, which is Waco. If you look at the 2023 population, they're a little bit larger than us, but not that much. But look at the comparison for everything else. The budget, ours is $1.5 million for FY25, whereas theirs is $4.4. So if you look at that, dollar per capita, they're spending $13.88 here in Beaumont compared to $30.20 in Waco. Our shelter capacity is 136 to 141, but theirs is 272. Their save rate is 96%, And even though we're limited, we're matching with 93%. So we're very proud of where we've come from and what where we have come from and where we're going. And we would really need and would like a facility that the public can be proud of as well. So any questions? Mr. Arthur.
Be a new place, or you would tear that one down or build a city-owned property or what to put this new facility on?
Well, it's more of a question for Matt. Matt, come in.
Well, when this first was added to the CIP, the community investment plan, they didn't really specify that yet. I would assume we would probably need a new location with a better accessible to the public.
Yeah, so that's another dollar amount, correct?
Yes, the land is going to have to be
Absolutely.
included.
That's my point. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, we don't have an exact location now, whether or not it would be here or another location, but the thought is to make it a little more centralized, so we may actually look at another location.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add to what you were asking though, right now the proposed for the new shelter is sitting at 6.6 million, but if you break that down, 400,000 of that is designated for right-of-way acquisition. Design and engineering is broken down to 652,000. Construction would be 5.5 million, and the others 27,000.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
John, you had a question?
That was really what I was asking.
So we're on the same page, John? Okay.
Okay. Thank you all for having us.
Thank you.
All right, I'm back. All right, moving on. Let's start with our police headquarters, located downtown near Nature's River. This is the front line of public safety, but the facility currently is stuck in the past. And excuse me, I'm not a sworn officer, but I do see one of the officers in the back. So just in case you got any specific questions, I'm sure the gentleman may be able to step up and answer those. So current Beaumont Police Headquarters is more than just a station. It supports dispatch, patrol, records, investigations, evidence, training, and more. It's the largest regional agency, and it partners with different federal agencies, and it's housed all in the city here. And then as of now, the police station, it no longer reflects professional standards. The modern facility ensures safety, efficiency, and well-being of both officers and residents. All right, this police station, it was built in 1974. It has a Cold War design, no windows. The basement is prone to flooding. It floods a lot because it's right next to Nature's River. It's adjacent to hazardous rail lines. The building has plenty of sensitive equipment, and every time a train passes, it's really loud noises and the building shakes. So it's causing a lot of structural issues with the building as well. And it has a capacity mismatch. This facility was built to hold about 130 individuals, and currently is now supporting over 320, and that's sworn officers and staff there. And then,
Can I ask you, where you putting these people at? It was built for 160 and 320 in there?
They're very creative. They're putting a bunch of individuals in shared rooms. They're sharing offices, and they're actually converting over different areas to house those individuals.
Wow.
And also, PD, they're spread across multiple facilities, so they're probably spread out about 6 or 7 facilities. So it's some individuals in the police station, they're in the Goodwill building, they're in the municipal court building. So we also have places that they're leased. So they're really spread out across multiple facilities, and we're looking to hopefully build a facility that can house all that, because obviously it's causing issues by them being separated. So it's really not good for operation.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, the layout is unsafe, insufficient, and it's fragmented. It has like a maze-like interior, so it's kind of like a square. It's really an interesting building. Like I said, it was built in 1974, so it has a maze type of interior. And again, the basement, it floods on the regular. It has constant roof leaks. We have issues with the HVAC. It had issues where it was very contaminated, and we end up having to replace a lot of the ducting. Also has limited ADA access. The elevator is constantly down. We have a lot of issues. Again, it's multiple off-site leases due to lack of space. And then due to that, it's a bunch of wasted costs and operational disconnects due to that. New HQ. So they're looking for space for growth and operational excellence. They will be looking for modern interview rooms, community space, secure storage, and also a design that helps with ADA regulations. They will be able to house improved technology and infrastructure. And then if they end up moving to a new location, which we believe we will have to have a location with additional parking space, hopefully it will be centralized downtown because we want the officers to be downtown in the city to increase safety. And then it will free up some of the valuable downtown riverfront property so it could have future development. So that's pretty much all that I have on the police headquarters. Were there any questions that you have from myself about that? Awesome. All right, moving on to our next. Let's talk about Fire Station 4. And this is the current Fire Station 4. All right, it was built in 1954. It's one of our oldest fire facilities. And again, it's far from meeting today's standards. So its function and community role, it covers residential, commercial, and industrial areas. It supports EMS, rescue, suppression, as well as regional response.
Is that Lucas and Gladys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it was built in 1954. It's over 70 years old. It's far beyond its expected life service. And it's not sized for modern trucks or the staffing needs. It lacks a decontamination space, reduced EMS storage. It doesn't have gender-inclusive restroom facilities. And then it has outdated plumbing, HVAC, and there's no internal fire protection. So if you can imagine, this place doesn't have a fire protection at a fire station. That's weird, right? All right, the current layout, and it's an age structure and hampers readiness. So it has cramped living quarters. It's like it's a very small station, as you can see in the previous picture. It has limited restrooms. It has no drive-through capabilities. So it's built back in the day, so it's not sized for current fire trucks and EMS vehicles. So they don't have no ability to pull fire trucks through that facility due to its age. So it has structural limitations. And then it's also small. There's no area to expand. There's not a lot of parking over there as well. And then the future station visions. It would be modern days training and wellness space. It would also be for ADA as well as NFPA compliance. It would be improved energy and air quality systems. And then we would definitely consider a new location for better access because right now this location is small. We would like to make it a lot larger. It would be similar to Fire Station 11, so a larger station to house those larger vehicles.
Excuse me, where is it located?
It's on Lucas and yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Gladys and Lucas.
All right, and that's all I have for Fire Station 4. Is there any questions?
Thank you, man.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. All right.
I have a quick question just regarding the proposed costs for the police and for the fire station. Just want to get a rough idea.
For currently right now, for the police station, we have it at around 59 million, a little bit over. And the reason, like I said, those are just estimates as of right now. We have to get into a needs assessment. Obviously, we have to do community outreach, reach with the police officers, see exactly what their needs are. But that would be for a larger police station. Right now, the current police station is around 59,000 square feet, and we'll be looking to hopefully upgrade to a facility that will be maybe double the size, 100,000 square feet. And the reason that we get those prices, we kind of do some cost comparisons, do some benchmarks to similar sized cities and see how much their police station will cost. So, and then for the fire station, we have it at around 5 million, almost 6 million, 5.5 million. And that's also, we did a benchmark compared to other cities that built similar sized fire stations, and that's where we got those costs from.
Is this the only fire station that needs to be upgraded?
This is definitely not the only fire station or building that needs to be upgraded here in the city of Beaumont, but this is one of the oldest ones besides the one that's historical landmark. So this is one of the oldest ones. And after that one, it'll be 2 more that are built in 1963, so those will be the next one that we will focus on.
What's the proximity of this one and the next closest one on Gladys? About?
I am not sure about that.
About 2 miles? That far, maybe?
Probably more than that. Couple miles. Yeah, probably 3.
Okay. Yeah, because the one is close to where I live at, down there, yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. So future considerations, long-term planning capital projects. So I want to briefly introduce 2 long-term projects, which are, it'll be the water park as well as a new city hall. And the reason we're talking about these is they're both outlined in the city strategic plan. So not a current priority, but these projects, like I said, have been identified as more of long-term planning projects, typically 5 years or more out. So again, both the water park and new city hall are essential to enhancing the quality of life and revitalizing public spaces. So the water park, it was identified as one of the top priorities in the strategic plan for community recreation and family-oriented attractions. Some of the key features would be a lazy river, splash zones, locker room, restrooms, picnic areas. As of right now, we don't have a location, and the cost is pretty much pending a feasibility study. So typically, we would have to do a feasibility study to determine what the cost was and determine the location. But the cost that we have in our current CIP is $10,235,000, and we got that cost because we kind of based that on the cost off the Pirate Bay and Baytown. So, but as of right now, we don't have a concrete cost on what it would be. But if it was something that the bond facilitation wanted to move forward, we would work on getting more concrete costing for that. And then the new city hall. So City Hall currently was built in 1972. Basically, the City Hall it no longer reflects the city scale, technology needs. It has a bunch of maintenance issues. Obviously, we need a new roof on the building. HVAC needs to be upgraded. We just have one large HVAC box. We would like to get it upgraded to a chiller system, and then possibly a larger city council chambers. A lot of times when we in city council, it's a bunch of people in, and we can't house all those individuals in the council. So we would like to upgrade that as well, make it a little bit larger. So it's a part of our strategic vision. It'd be to create a downtown town square public space type of area, promote economic development, and have the increased foot traffic downtown, enhance government accessibility and transparency. And then plan features, it will be an integrated civic plaza green space, pedestrian friendly, and then improve public interface. But again, we would have to do a needs assessment as well as a study to pretty much determine exactly what this would look like. But like I said, this is something that we're not looking at as of right now, but it's kind of like long-term planning in the future. So we will kind of know that we have this on our radar as something we plan in the future. Again, conducting needs assessment, feasibility assessment. And that's all that I have on facilities. Is there any other questions about that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I make a comment, just following up, I think, on one of the comments that Kenny mentioned, because I know we have some new members, and hopefully they've seen the prior videos of the prior meetings, but just in case they haven't, so the question may come up, we have a lot of needs citywide. How did these end up, on this list? I think I see some heads nodding. And so primarily, and Jeff's covered this in prior meetings, but I just wanted to mention it because a lot of these are coming out of the current capital plan, which is adopted this year. The question was, where do those projects come from? They came from prior CIPs that are looked at every year. It's a 5-year plan. They're looked at every year. But where else did they come through? As Mr. Reguette mentioned earlier, we had the Parks Plan that was just wrapped up. So some of these are reflected in that. As Kenny mentioned earlier, you have the strategic plan that the city council approved a year and a half ago. So you have a downtown plan that the downtown committee approved about a year and a half ago. So again, as Jeff mentioned, I think in our first meeting, there's a lot of plans out there, and again, the idea is to try to get them filtered down. So if you're asking yourself, well, you know, I think that came up about other fire stations, other playgrounds, where did that come from?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yes, so it's just, there's priority needs that are based on a lot of work that's gone into this to get us to this point.
And that's existing right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all. Give it back to Jeff. Thank you, sir.
I do have one other question. Are there any federal requirements for us to have, like you mentioned, our fire station, which is really important for safety? Are there no federal requirements that that come into play when we're looking at either expanding it or revising it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so how is that handled?
I mean, typically a lot of buildings, they're what they say call it grandfathered in, so you're able to operate, you know, under that stance until, especially like with ADA. So until you do a large scale renovation, that's when you have to upgrade and adhere to those additional ADA requirements and federal requirements. So typically, you know, like I said, when we do a major renovation or new construction, we'll have to adhere to those new federal policies and ADA policies.
And that's been, the money, the cost has been plugged into that, whatever requirement.
Yeah, it's gonna,
That's-
yep,
okay.
that's what permanent and federal, yes, it's all been, yes, sir.
And then one
And
other
ma'am.
question, I think you mentioned it, in regards to maintenance and, I don't know how you said it, but maintenance.
Operations and maintenance.
Operations, are those typically included in bond issues?
That's a Jeff question, or maybe a June question.
No, as Jeff Barton mentioned earlier, they're not included in the actual bond issue. Staff will need to incorporate those as it moves forward. As Mr. Neal mentioned, that was his request, and staff will be putting together those maintenance and operations related costs.
That's huge.
Okay, so
Yeah.
That's huge.
there lies the problem on why you have to have those numbers up front, because then you're going to be, say you pass a $100 million bond issue. Say you pass a $100 million bond issue, or would you say it's $5 per 80 million? So whatever the numbers are, say you pass that, so you're going to be increasing the taxes for that amount.
Right.
And so then when council also sets the budget, they're also going to have to increase the O&M budget, which will also raise the taxes. So that's why you have to have both those numbers to be able to
Absolutely.
make a
I understand, and I never thought about it like that, because that's going to be real, the
That's right,
O&M. That's real.
These bond numbers are a one-time expense, except for all the O&M is every year from here on out.
Yes, sir, it has to be maintained. Yep.
And that is something that we'll put together, and we'll have it for the next meeting. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, we'll make sure that's
That's real. Yep.
Let me think, I'll think about it.
Well, we can come back. We're going to have some discussion now. Y'all have been really patient for these meetings as we set the table, you know, talking about what is a bond, how it works. So now we kind of get down to dividing the steers from the bulls, I guess. And what we're going to do, just to remind you, we talked a little bit about this last time. We'll be prioritizing these more and more as we go, right? So that we can give the council some idea of what's most important to you. But in the beginning, because we have so much, we're just trying to get into 3 buckets, right? Offhand, do you think, yeah, I'm already pretty sure, I'm pretty interested at least in yes, this being on the bond? Or, and you know, you can change your mind because we're going to see some O&M, we're going to see some other projects. So you might change your mind, but just to start to prioritize, yeah, I think this probably, I'm really interested in moving this discussion forward. Or tier 2, well, maybe. It's going to depend on maybe what maintenance money is. It's going to depend on some other projects. Let's leave it in the maybe category. Or really, no, let's take that off the table so that we can focus our attention and our research on these primary projects. That's really the 3 tiers that we're talking about. And again, just really roughly, we started off with something like $1.2 billion worth of need. You didn't hear $1.2 billion worth of projects tonight. What you heard about was the 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 projects, right? You heard about 25 to 30% of that number. You heard about something like $300 million worth of projects that either citizen committees or staff or a combination of have filtered through and said, these are kind of the priority projects. And your decision is going to be, do we want to, do none of those and we shouldn't do a bond? Or do we want to do all of those? Or, more likely something in between, right? And tonight, again, we're going to focus just on recreation, parks, trails, and facilities, which is somewhere in this range. You see some big ranges on the others because we'll talk about this more in future meetings, but you've got some projects, such as some of the stuff going on downtown. There's some negotiations going on right now between the private sector and the public sector about who might pick up what might be needed to put together a deal. Does the city want to do a deal? So that's why you see some pretty big ranges on those. So again, tonight, we're not looking for a specific number. So we're not saying, oh, you can only do 50 million in parks, or you have to do at least 5 million in parks. It's not about a number right now. That will come. It's really your sense of what you think the community needs. And then once you tell us that, we'll start backing into numbers.
Yes, I have a question. And Jimmy, I don't know if it's up there for you to talk about, or maybe you can talk about it. And this is just me speaking to people that I've talked to, that a recreational center like the Pruitt Center, another one of those, does that fit anywhere up there?
We will have the recreation center, I believe it's the next meeting where we talk about downtown related projects. We do have a recreation center for this area.
Okay, well, yeah, just like the Pruitt Center.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good.
More updated, modern, obviously,
Good.
brand new
Okay.
recreation.
And it just happens to be kind of the way things are unfolding. It's looped in one of the other deep dives.
Okay.
I have a question on that. So we just have one proposed for this area, just for?
Originally, there was a recreation center proposed, and Ms. Loki isn't here, proposed within a neighborhood, but we do have it proposed for the downtown area, actually out in this location, in the CIP. But one thing to note, though, is that we can always move that around. It's not concrete that it's in the downtown area, but if the board or if this advisory committee chose to include a recreation center in the proposal or the bond initiative, we could locate that recreation center anywhere in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the reasons we're dealing with downtown last in our deep dives is just to give staff and city council a little bit more time to narrow down some options that are out there.
Question for you, right here.
Yes.
You mentioned infrastructure. I did not see any roadway project or any other projects.
Apologies for those of you who are new. So tonight is meeting number 3. On meeting number 4, next meeting, we'll be talking about infrastructure. So the deep dive will all be on infrastructure. So we're going to be focusing on roads and sidewalks. And then in meeting number 5, we're going to be looking at downtown economic development projects and begin to prioritize between those different groups, refining some of this prioritization. I hope we get to that next meeting, but maybe not. And then we'll be back at a meeting number 6 after an open house. So we're going to talk about a little more about schedule at the end. But just to refresh those of you who are new, we will go through 5 meetings, get some idea of where you are on all these projects. Then we'll take that out to the public for an open house. It'll be live and also virtual. And we will be telling people, look, the committee hasn't finished their work, but they are far enough along to show it to you. They have some preliminary priorities. What do you think of these? We'll also give an interim report to City Council. Then we'll come back, and as again, that will be live and online. Then we'll come back to you and say, here's what we heard online. Here's what we heard at the open house. If the City Council has any last words of wisdom about kind of where their pain threshold is, that is. Now you all come up with the, let's narrow this down one last time, sharpen our pencils, see where we are, and come up with a final set of recommendations.
One more question. On the bond, you mentioned $5 buy this much money, $10
Yes.
a month. For how long? What's the life of the bond? 20 years, 30 years?
It's a 20-year, that's on a 20-year horizon.
20 years,
Correct.
okay, thanks.
Okay, I do have another question.
Yes.
Will those who did not participate, citizens who did not participate in the original survey, will they have another opportunity?
Absolutely. So that will be open from July 4th. It will start with the July 4th festival in town so that we can really reach out to a lot of people with hard copy and letting them know. There'll be QR codes where they can go. So it's open to anybody. You do not have to have participated the first time. In fact, we'll hope that some of the people who didn't will get tuned in and say, oh, now there's more specifics. So yes, thank you. It'll start 4th at the celebration, and then it will be online through the 13th. So we'll be hoping that all of you will reach out to the civic organizations or church organizations or neighborhood organizations you're involved in and encourage people to make their opinions known. So tonight, we have so many projects, right? We've got a lot of ground to cover. You all, I'm sure your heads are spinning a little bit, right? There's a lot of information. So we could spend, having done this a lot, we could spend months talking about this. But what we found is this technique is really useful is to just go through this voting exercise we're going to do first and see if there's clear consensus one way or another, right? So that way, if there's really early and consensus or even unanimity on these things belong over in Tier 3 that we don't want to talk about, and these belong in Tier 1, that allows us to really focus in on the remaining stuff where you all have questions. So we're going to use something called Mentimeter. We think we mentioned it to you in the first and second meeting. It will be using your phones. So does everybody have a phone? We have one or two extras if you need it. Joey, would you mind passing those out? These are we're going to have some detailed worksheets, but here are some numbers on costs. I want to apologize. We sent over to the printer this morning here in Beaumont a 3-page document, and I think they only printed we picked them up and didn't notice they only printed the first 2 pages. So they have the Parks, Recs, and Trails, and they did not print the facilities, but you'll see that up on the screen. So, with Mentimeter, it's going to allow, you're going to see it up on the screen in real time, right? So it's not going to have your name on it, by the way, but you're going to see who thinks this project ought to be a 3, who thinks it ought to be a 2, and you'll see the voting kind of happening, and it'll all give us a sense of, oh, do we need more talk there, or yeah, can we do? Okay, good.
And then we're going to go to...
This is really Kara's section, but she's much better technologically than I am, and our HDMI cable doesn't reach quite long enough, so she's going to sit there and I'm going to stumble through for you. So I think that's right. If we pull out the phones first, it'll get confusing to jump back and forth. So,
Can I ask a question? Why is this already filled out?
yeah, I'm gonna get there for you in just one. The question is why some are on 3 and some are on 2. So thank you, Joey. So we discussed this a little bit last time, and let me go back over it for new members and just to refresh all of us. we really said that we would take a first shot just for discussion of moving these into a tier. They're going to start mostly there are two things you'll notice on this. I was going to wait till we're up on the screen, but there's two things you'll notice here. Great, you heard that. So the Wi-Fi for the building's gone down. It'll be back. And so over in the left column, you see just a project number, which is just a project number we've given projects just internally to help keep up with them. And then the project name. We have a spreadsheet that's much longer than this. It includes a lot of other information, so we've tried to distill it down for you. There's an estimated project cost, then some contingency, then an early shot at inflation costs. A couple of words about that. Contingency, if you're not familiar with construction, that's just a fancy word for saying, hey, there could be cost overruns, so let's add some extra money in there just to be careful. Those numbers will get more refined. Those are really rough numbers right now. Some of the projects, staff has already put in a lot of contingency. In other projects, there wasn't much contingency. So just until we get a better handle on that, we threw some contingency in there. We'd rather be talking about too much money and work down than be surprised at the end. Then on inflation, we used about 3.5% a year. I know some of you are architects and construction folks, and construction inflation's been running a lot higher. It's now been down low. None of us quite know what's going to happen with tariffs. We're trying to address that some with contingency and inflation. We'll continue to work on that number as well. So don't feel like those are the last numbers. We're going to want some feedback from you guys as well on that. But I just want you to know that we are thinking about contingency and inflation as we go. Some projects will need more inflation than others because some projects may be completed in year 2. Some projects might take 5 years to complete. Some might not be started until year 3. So we've worked with your staff to take an early shot at that. That will continue to be refined as we go. Then you'll see the tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3. And as you said, Mr. Neal, those are filled out. And that's just so we can have a place to start. Anybody in here has the right to say, hey, this on tier 3, I want to move it to tier 1. Let me tell you first about tier 3, what we put on tier 3, because that's the nose, right? So that's how we got from 1.2 billion down to this manageable number, more manageable number that we're at. And that is, again, in consultation with your staff and the existing plans that are out there.
So the city of Beaumont and you all got together and said, okay, these are go in tier 3.
And that doesn't mean they stay there. That's just
no, but
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. And also in our community investment plan, and Jeff will probably mention this, there are some projects that are paid for with other funding sources, such as certificates of obligation, which wouldn't necessarily go on a bond referendum. So those are moved over into tier 3. If they're grant funded, we don't need to go and ask the voters for authorization of those. Those are in tier 3. So there is a method to all of this madness, and again, as Jeff mentioned, things can be moved around. This is just the initial view of this matrix.
Just to reiterate, just to build on that, so you've got some water wastewater funds. You need water wastewater projects, but those are paid for out of a different bucket, right? There are some places that you have an existing, the parks plan itself, or your downtown plan itself, or facilities plan, whatever, says, hey, we really need this, but we can probably wait till year 10 or year 7 or 8. And we've literally looked out 5 or 6 years in this bond, right? 20 years to pay for it, but needs over 5 or 6 years. So we've postponed that. In other cases, City Hall would be an example. You all may disagree, but in talking to staff, they've said, yeah, we work in City Hall every day. We need a new City Hall, but you know what? There's other things that we need worse in the city than a new City Hall for staff. Let's push City Hall over to tier 3. So that's how we got to moving a bunch of these projects into tier 3.
Gotcha.
Next, oh, sorry.
and you might have answered this in one of the previous meetings already, but when this goes to a bonder, will each one of these be listed individually?
Great question, and we did talk about it, but let me refresh us all on it. And I probably skimmed over it a little too quickly in the review today. We're talking about propositions. So there's a good deal of flexibility at the city level in how these get grouped into propositions. But it's not unlimited flexibility because the Attorney General's office has a lot of rules about that. Like-minded projects have to be together. So you can't, for instance, say, hey, we want to build $1 billion city hall with a penthouse for the city manager, and we're going to put that in with roads because we saw in the survey that everybody wants roads. So like-minded projects have to be together. So, for instance, generally the AG says, well, you could put sidewalks and roads together and call that infrastructure, and that's fine. They're related, right? But parks and trails can generally be in one bond. So, for example, you could maybe come up with one bond proposition, we could together, for all the parks and rec. Or you could break that into several, like the golf course might be a standalone proposition and the other rec projects might be one proposition. So to answer your question, I think typically you would not break all of these into separate propositions, but they would be grouped. So we've been working under the assumption that you would probably want at least 3 to 5 propositions. So that's the way these deep dives are scheduled, really. So parks and rec, for example, it might be more than one, but there'd be a lot of projects grouped into there together. Facilities might be another project or a proposition that people could vote on. Roads and sidewalks might be another, and then downtown might be yet another. And there could be more beyond that.
Does this committee have the right to poll ourselves to see if we want to make this individually listed on the bond as the recommendation to the council?
Sure. Would you like recommend everything? I mean,
That's how I would do it. I would like to see it given to the voters just like this, to where they get to vote individually.
Absolutely. When we get to meeting, if we have time at the end of next meeting, we're going to talk about that, and then at meeting number 5, we're going to talk a lot about that.
Thank you.
So, Tier 2, let's talk a minute about Tier 2. We took everything else.
Excuse me, could you go over, what did you just say again?
When we make the recommendation to council and council puts it on the ballot for the voters, I would like each one of these individually listed for the voters to be able to vote on it. The ones that we recommend to council and council recommends to the voters, I'd like it broke down to where they can vote on them individually.
How long would that list be, though?
Who cares though, right?
I'm asking, is that
I would say from my Mr. Neal, I would say that from my perspective, just as an outsider sees it's done a lot, I think you want to strike a balance. I think this committee, I don't want a short circuit discussion that we want to have because I want to give you a chance to make your case for that in this meeting 4 or 5. I would say, since we're getting more questions about it now, I would urge you to think about striking a balance between giving voters a lot of options, plenty of options, but not going to every single item. If you have a lot of projects might work together. You might need one to make the other effective, say either in Parks and Rec or roads or a sidewalk that goes for a road. If you don't have the ability to structure that and say, hey, we've thought about this and this package of things needs to go together, it complicates your story in telling it to voters. So I think there's an upside, obviously, if voters get to pass judgment on everything, but there is some challenge. You're kind of encouraging each neighborhood to vote for their stuff and against everybody else.
But at the same time, you also don't want to see some of the good projects fail because something might have been snuck in there that rallies the community up.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's going to be the sweet spot that I think you as a committee have to find. Like if there's a project that seems like the smelly egg in the basket, or even just
everybody we can put on gloves and get into that piece. We'll put on gloves and
I'm good.
Okay, all right.
And thank you for your patience. I'm really not trying to sidetrack that conversation. I just want to I want
Great
to put it in a
question.
little different time.
Unbelievable, great questions, great.
But the whole point of this is
That's my
to put it all out there for us to see, so we're not sneaking anything into this project, right?
All of these meetings are posted on the website for people, on the city's website for people to see, both in advance and afterwards.
Yes.
So we, in fact, not only do not want to sneak something through, we really, really want to go out and talk to the community and make sure they feel comfortable
Yes.
about the direction we're headed.
Okay, forgive me. I just want to make sure that I am clear on what Tier 3 is.
Yes.
So, for instance, I've seen the success that the city of Beaumont has had with the Real-Time Crime Center. And me as a mother of a small child,
Right.
I think that cameras and security systems in parks and playgrounds would be important to me. However, that's placed in Tier 3. Does that mean that there is other funding, potentially grant funding, potentially, I mean, is that, tell me why it's in Tier 3 right now?
Yes.
question.
Can you get to that? Can you get to
Very
our
great
tab
question.
on Tier 3?
That-
On security systems, do we have that filled in, Joey, and whether that was?
And I just use that as an example, like, I just wanted to know.
If you have questions about any of those, we've gone through and identified a lot of those, or else somebody from the city can answer that for you about why. Each one is different, so can you tell us about security systems in the parks, for instance?
Thank you. Determined as a priority in the parks plan. As I understand it, did not make it into the CIP this year.
Okay.
May make it into future years. I think that'd be, June may be able to fill in some more there.
But I just didn't want to vote to put it into Tier 1 if there's other funding that could possibly take care of it.
Great
I don't
question.
want to waste our bond.
No, you're getting exactly to the nub of it.
Yeah. Yeah, just one quick point to add about the security cameras. This year, the city spent, I believe, about $100,000, $80,000 for security cameras, but that funding came out of the general fund. And if we added security cameras in the next fiscal year's budget, likely it would be paid for out of the general fund.
Okay.
But to comment off of that, Katie, that item, I guarantee you would pass to the voters.
I think it should too. I agree.
I mean, that's the type of
almost be
item
my
that I
number
think
one.
would be guaranteed to pass.
So great example. So if you could start making note, what we're going to do is go to the twos first and see if there's consensus. And then we really want to hear from you if there are items on the three. Listen, I can't emphasize enough that we don't have a dog in this hunt, right? So that's what we want to hear. If you're saying, no, that's a priority for me, let's move. I'd like the group to consider moving this up to Tier 2 or to Tier 1. Then I think the procedure we'd follow is somebody makes that suggestion. If there seems to be interest in the group in doing that, right? If one person says, let's do that, and everybody says, nah. But if there's interest in the group in having that discussion, we'll have some of the discussion. We'll ask the city to comment, and then we'll just move it up or not.
I'd like to ask the committee, how do you feel about that item with security? Do you think that needs to move up? We'll talk about it and just see where it lands. Who would all like to see that item move up? The security. Security.
So quite a bit of interest in security. So can we toggle security over to Tier 2 for now? So now you'll see, this is the beauty of this. You can see it in dynamic real time, right? We'll just toggle that over to 2. Now, we'll go through the rest of the threes. If there's any other threes that you think need to be moved up, start making notes of that. But we're going to move on to the 2s first and then come back to the 3s.
And I just want to make sure I'm clear. As we're doing this right now, we're not considering whether or not there's other sources of funds. We're just looking at whether this is a good idea, and then the next discussion will be if there are other available funds, because I think that is important.
That's a great point, and let me try and slice that apple and invite the city to jump in. But here's the deal. We've taken the first shot is in Tier 3, some of those things are in fact funded elsewhere.
Okay.
Some of them do have funding, but not all of them. Some of them are things that the city has said, well, yeah, it's needed, but we think it could wait.
Okay.
Or we just think, or we might apply for a grant, or whatever it is.
So for example, as we're talking about security, this is one that's in tier 3, not because there's additional funding, but it's more, we believe we can allocate this later on is the idea.
I believe that's correct, right? Or do you guys want to weigh in? Let me bring the mic over there. The question is, for the security cameras in parks, and they're not in the CIP currently, is there a specific other source of funding, or is it just that, well, they can't get everything into the CIP, and so this one might be in a future year?
Yes, currently we don't have the funding for the security cameras.
So if you want to move, if the security cameras is a big priority, then we should move that up.
I think we should too. I mean, but to make sure it's a high priority, but we can, as this group, we can put it up there.
Yes, sir.
And to include that, and we know it could get covered. I mean,
Yeah, we've already,
100% certainty, but
is it, so if you see, you have these in front of you, but if this is the sheet that we're working off of, a spreadsheet, so it's already been moved up right now to the maybes. We may want to move it up to ones, but we'll have some more discussion of that. I heard a lot of you seem pretty interested in that, so maybe it moves over to 1, but just for now, we moved it up to 2. And that's just an example of how
yes, sir.
It'll work, a good example of how it works. The spreadsheet that we've got, where we've got, you see this column that says tier insights, and we have BBC. On this is not the one you have, but we have one that has a lot of columns. So every time we vote in here, we'll be keeping track of, oh, at this meeting it got moved up, at this meeting it got moved down. Also, we have tier insights as we talk to you or as we get stuff from the city. So we have some information on some of these projects about, is it funded elsewhere? Is it just didn't make the cutoff list of top priorities?
And Jeff, I think it may be helpful if you could slide if you can do that, over to the next column where it says project references, and that may give a little insight into if it's in the CIP, it's in the parks plan.
Where did this project come from?
Strategic plan.
You know, where did it rise out of, right? Where is it from? Some additional notes, and then every meeting we'll keep track of where you guys put it if it moves around. And just as a reminder, right now we've just put it into 2. Later this meeting you may put it into 1, and in meeting number 6 after the open house, that people may say, well, I like this, but I'm not willing to spend that much money, and you guys may come back and move it to tier 3 again. So this is not your final bite at the apple, but it does help us narrow down the field so that then we can get you the kind of depth information you want on the projects that are remaining.
So why would it be even presented here if we have allocated funds for, why are we just going over topics and voting on comments than if we already have funds allocated to it?
Well, because you theoretically, there could be money, there could be, for example, a grant that the city's applying for and they think they're going to get it, and you could say, well, it's so important to me that I don't care. Or there could be that it's funded, but it's funded 4 years from now. I don't care, I want it right now. We want there to be a list so that you can see, hey, I really care about this road. And why hasn't the city thought of this? Well, it is there. So as you get this information, we'll be able to show you. If you raise your hand and say, hey, I want Smith Road over in my neighborhood fixed, we'll be able to scroll down and say, oh, it is on the city's list. The city is working on this. It's just funded somewhere else. And that's important not only for those of us on the committee, but as we begin to tell the story to the community and somebody says, for example, why aren't there more drainage projects in the bond? It's important to have this list and say, hey, the bond is not the only place that the city is working on projects. There are a lot of drainage projects, for example, that are being funded out of another bucket. Does that make sense?
But just to clarify on that, John, none of these projects are funded in the budget. Maybe anticipated in future budgets, but none of it's funded.
So why are we saying it's funded?
It's not funded.
So why are we saying it's funded?
That's a question for these guys.
Yeah, we're just saying that it has a funding source in the CIP. So it has and when I say funding source, if you look at our CIP for the 5 years of the CIP, year one of a CIP is actually funded by the city council when we take it to city council. Years 2 through 5 are not funded. They're just in the CIP for planning purposes. So when we say funded by another source, we really mean it's proposed to be funded
So
with
it's
another
not funded.
funding source.
It's not funded. I mean, I don't sound like I'm sounding. Either it is or it's not.
Well, one thing to remember, Mr. Chair, is right now is June, so the city is working on a budget for the upcoming year, and they're proposing things that are in the budget. The council won't vote on, the council will have some hearings and some preliminary votes on that, but they won't vote on a final budget till September. So it might be in the budget or proposed to be in the budget, but
So do we need to put an asterisk by a lot of these things or what?
You could, I guess.
I mean,
I think the answer to this is if it is so important to you that no matter what, you want to move it up, move it up. But on the other hand, there's $1.2 billion of potential projects out there.
Right.
We're only down to about 350 million, and the survey indicates that people might not want to spend that much. So I think any project that's really important to you, and three, I want to emphasize, pull it out. Let's talk about it.
Right.
But we have tried to give you some structure so that we're not going through all $1.2 billion, because staff spends months and months and months trying to kind of get to that. Council will spend weeks on budget workshops, and we recognize that you have a limited amount of time.
And I understand. I think everybody understands that. But to get a clear picture on what's there and what's not there, for me anyway.
Right.
To get an understanding.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is all of these projects on this list, look at these as not being funded and that they need funding.
That sounds about right.
So
there you go.
Focus
Now I
at
can
this
move around.
point is not whether or not it's
now I
funded,
can move around.
focusing what is a priority, and that's the focus. And we'll get additional information on, I guess, the potential of being funded later on.
Yes, in parks it's a little different because we've opened up a really complex question, really, because you do have some funds in water wastewater that are funded elsewhere. In some of the other programs, there are some funds that are, I think in parks there's none, but in other places there are. But yes, Mr. Chairman, I would say if you have doubts that something 3 is really important to you, bring it up.
You've cleared it up for me, June. I got it now. Let's act like what? We don't have the money for this.
Yeah.
That would.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would help me. I don't know about anybody else to.
That's the approach I would take, and then if it is funded, then staff will let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This discussion is getting to be real interesting because it's about to do a 360 in terms of where we start and where we think we're headed as to where we really are. And I'm looking at these tier 3 proposals now. Unless things just drastically change, some of these things may be positioned out here because there used to be opportunities where you could get grants, matching funds, and other revenue sources to help make these things happen, as opposed to saying, I'm going to take all this out of my bank account and I'm going to do it all on my own. The city has to be cognizant of the fact there are possibilities out there, and we're talking about over a number of years, various things taking place. I mean, I guess the best example would be like our transit system. It used to be like 70, 80% of that transit system is funded by the federal government, but we operated locally with a independent operator. We got to have it, we have it, but it's not like we're funding the whole operation out of the city's money. So as we start looking at these priorities, I think that's going to kind of change up a little bit. For instance, security cameras in the parks are critical. That's important. People want that. And they're probably more willing to pay for it along the way as opposed to having to set it in a bond for big ticket items that you're not going to get done one way or the other. So we have to keep our mindset open with some flexibility as we work through this, or we be kind of pitting ourselves against the wall, and I don't think we want to do that.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize enough, this is just a first snapshot because you got to put stuff somewhere, right?
Yes, sir.
And we would love, you know, that is from talking to your staff about what's in the CIP, kind of what's headed. But that's the whole reason that the staff and the city council set this up, is to hear from you guys about what you think are the really priorities and what voters want to hear from.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Project P3 and P4.
P3.
Park in Ward 1 and Community Park in South Park.
Yes.
I'm fixing to vote on these two projects. I don't know the background. What about Ward 2 and Ward 3? How did they select this project, or how did they come out with the project?
Well, I think that's, I think Parks, that's what they were trying to cover, that those, everything you see in there like that has been through the Parks plan. So you had a whole group of citizens that over time with Half & Associates, an outside consulting firm, over a year and a half, I think, developed a series of park recommendations. And then that went to staff, which developed a community investment plan. Sorry,
Jeff,
go ahead,
I'll just
Chris.
quickly mention that these were in these were in the current CIP. They were also identified in the Parks plan that was just approved last week as needed. So that's why they're in here. And you ask, you know, what about wards 3 and 4, right? And if you look at the Parks plan, and again, we could make that available to the committee. If you look at the Parks plan, which is very fresh, you'll see that the needs, we talked about a, you know, 10, 20-minute walk shed to a park. If you look at 3 and 4, it's very highly dense development. There's a lot of parks. So you ask, if you look at the plan and say, where are there not parks? Wards 1 and Wards 2 as dense. And so again, in this current CIP, those are in there and also identified as needs in the park plan.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'll just echo what was just said. Ward 1 is an area in the city, one of the newer areas where people are really now just starting to rebuild or start to build in the area. So now we need additional parks. Like I talked about both Wuthering Heights as well as Klein Park. They're in Ward 1. Those are now busier than ever. I think we should invest in those two parks before we actually go out and say start building a whole new fresh park. That would be my judgment on what to do next. But there are new parks that should be planned, but I think we need to invest in what we have first before we go forward with it in Ward 1.
So I have a question off of that. So y'all mentioned that Ward 1 and 2 have less parks than 3 and 4. So why are we recommending that we add another park in the south end?
That was put forth by council. Wanted the one in the south end.
Yeah, I would ask that we share that parks plan with this group because there are so many projects, but you'll see in it, you'll see the map and you'll see where the gaps are in terms of accessibility, especially to community parks, and you'll see that that area of Ward 4, there's a big gap.
Okay.
So you'll see it.
Do we have that tonight?
Yeah.
We can get you a link. Yeah.
Can we look at that before?
Yeah, but
Can we look at that before we vote on this?
It's hard. Have you looked at it?
At the parks plan? I have.
Yeah, not the plan, but the actual ward maps. It's kind of hard to decipher.
So can I ask us to do this? Look, I think they're really good questions, first of all. And I know we're all handicapped a little bit because the parks plan is just getting adopted, right? So it's all moving very fast here at the same time. But I think what will be helpful is if we can move through this exercise, just because if you've got a question about it, you can keep it in the maybes. It says you want more information, but let's get just some sense of where consensus is, and then where the problems are, or the deeper discussion needs to go.
The only other thing that I'm thinking it through on this list, to me it would have been helpful to know like what ward we were. Would that be helpful to everybody else, or is that not how you look at it? I mean, what ward this falls into, or does it fall into apply to all of the, the city?
I know that I'd like the city to address that, but I will say for us, that we started off trying to make you a map of what park and rec projects affected what ward, just in case people were interested, or what side of town. There's lots of different ways to break it up. Quadrant, ward. But an awful lot of them then aren't ward specific, right? There are programs, there are parks that are regional.
And that could be annotated also.
Yes, we couldn't find a way to annotate that very well, but I know the city has some good information on that in the parks plan. That's
Yeah,
pretty
we're
good.
gonna, I was just talking to Ken, we're gonna get y'all a link to the plan, and we'll give you a reference to the map that I was referencing. We also may be able to give you a better map that shows the wards. A lot of these projects, if you look at them, some of them are specific. Obviously, we've got a proposed park in the south end. Some of those, though, are across multiple wards.
Well, like the security cameras. that
Right,
would
that's
apply
across,
to all.
right. And then some of them, you know, we don't have an exact location. So when you say the south end, there are a few different locations we're looking at. So we don't know exactly where, so it's hard to make a map of exactly where, but we can get y'all a really good map, I think, where a lot of these you'll be able to say, okay, this is here.
Mr. Boone.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Boone, and I think I'm about to ask you something or have a comment simply because everybody's territorial. What ward is that? I don't see it in my ward. See, all of that, man, is real. That's real. And that's what I guess we have to maneuver through that. Well, they getting 3 over here. Somebody else in my old neighborhood, well, we got 1. What's up with that, Coach? And vice versa.
Yeah.
Taylor, why y'all got 3 and y'all keep this real, man.
Yeah. And when,
This is about.
when you have the open house, that's going to be the kind of thing, and I know you know that, but that's going to be the kind of thing that those people that come to the open house that are really and truly interested in spending, okay, I'll have some additional $10 worth of money.
If I know that it's, and that's all legitimate. And I don't think I'm not saying nobody's hiding anything, but that's a legitimate question that's going to come out in all 4 wards.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, all this we do is we try to avoid who's getting what ward. You want to distribute equitably across the community. And I think that's the good thing that you'll see in the plan is it's not about what's going to what ward. It's, you know, what's needed across the whole.
Real good.
So can I ask you a question, Coach? So,
Yeah.
I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but my personal opinion is I would much rather see the $8 or $9 million that's slated for Ward 1 and South End Park go into all the parks and fix the current parks that we already have versus the $1.2 million.
But that's, Taylor, that's something we could kick around because we're not limited. This is just a start, a vision. And then as we kick this around, that's very legitimate.
Because Mr. Reggett was up here saying that we have 13 parks that need to be fixed, and we're only putting $1.2 million, knowing that it takes over $500,000 per park to bring it up to par.
It makes sense to me, Taylor. Makes sense to me.
So I think all those are great. Like, that is exactly the discussion we want to get to. Let me just trust me on that. You know, a lot of you weren't here for the first meeting, but one of the things I said was every single time we've done this, there is chaos before the light, right? There's dark. That's how it is. If you're working with,
and it's a good thing.
And it is a good thing, not a bad thing. Because
yes.
If you've got 15, 20 smart people who are dedicated to their community, and that's the only kind of folks who show up for this sort of thing, then everybody's going to have their own opinions, and we're going to have to work through them. Now, I will just tell you, if you'll give me a little bit of patience and trust, and I know that's hard to do at this point because you don't know me very well yet. Let's move through this process of just figuring out where there isn't discussion, right? We all agree with this because that starts to clean the table, right? Then we see what's still left there that needs some scrubbing.
Absolutely.
Let's go. You did?
Okay.
Jeff, real quick, can we specify this would be for the committee members only?
This is for what?
So this is, first of all, everybody who's out in the audience, we're really glad you're here. We hope you're enjoying it. The voting is only for members of the committee. So if you're on the committee, if you would, you can use a QR code if you know how to do that. Also, Joey Ochoa, who's younger and smarter than me, can show you how to do that.
Coach,
Or you
I'll vote
can,
for you.
I got it going.
first you're going to go to www.minty.com, www.minty.com.
Yeah, you can stand right here.
Do not hesitate to raise your hand if you're like me and this stuff doesn't come naturally. It does come naturally to Kara and Joey, and they'll help walk you through it.
Man, I'm sick of passwords.
So there should be 15 members that are here tonight, voting members, I believe. Wait, so when you go to www.minty.com, right here is the code that you'll enter. And again, or you can scan the QR code and it'll take you there. Who's still working on getting in?
We're waiting on the presenter.
Kara, can you?
Waiting on presenter.
Oh, waiting on presenter. Good, that's us. All right. Okay, go ahead. All right. Some of you may still be working on it, but here's the sample question.
That's it. That's just the,
Dallas, California, Houston, Texas, Dallas.
what was your favorite text? This just.
So if you're not in, raise your hand and Joey will come. Where did Joey go? There he is.
Joey, stay over here, Joey. Go back over there.
So, who's your favorite Texas sports team? Now look, you'll see right here in this corner, it's counting up. 17 people are in?
Can we vote already? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you can vote.
It'll make you have to take them all. That's just funny.
Can you
Submit, yeah. You can actually do
Okay, well, some people may have gotten in before I made the announcement. That's great. That's how many votes we should have. There's 15 voting members of the committee here tonight, so we've got 15 people who have voted, and you see that, yeah, the Texans have won. So there we go. All right. All right, that's how this will work. You can see votes coming up as we go. Again, we're going to have lots of discussion later, but right now, we're just trying to make a little progress. Okay. See what we can take care of that's easy, if there is anything easy. And you can look at your matrix. Again, we haven't had a lot of discussion. We know that. So if you think there needs to be a lot more discussion, then keep it in tier 2. Or if you're pretty comfortable saying, nah, not this bond, move it to 3. If you're sure or relatively sure, then you move it to tier 1. So it looks like we have something most folks feel pretty good about. I think that's 13 of 14 votes there. Anybody having trouble? We got 14 of you, so we're going to move P2 into tier 1 for now. Okay? So then P3. So as we vote, Kara is moving these into the big spreadsheet from one tier to the other. You may want to read out the deep.
Is this construction of a new park?
No.
Ward 1 is.
We had a quick.
Just a quick question.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is a new park construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, number 1, I mean, it is?
New park.
Did you get your question answered? Sorry, I was.
Yeah, I was just wondering if this is going to be a new park construction. It sounds like that is the case, whereas some of us had talked about perhaps renovating some of the existing parks before maybe investing in new parks.
Yeah. Jeff, the question I asked earlier, have we considered consolidating all the parks into maybe 4 or 5 regional parks instead of having 15, 20 all over the city? if we consider consolidation, because the more you have on the ground, the more you have to maintain. You consolidate, it's more effective to maintain it. You
Yeah.
have 4 or 5 major parks.
Yeah, and again, we're going to share you a link to the new parks plan. In it is a variety of tiers of parks. So you'll see like Terrell Park, which is a regional, and then you have community parks, and then you have neighborhood parks, and then you have special parks. So we did look at that. It's just reducing the number of parks is a difficult.
Could you give me an example of what's what's Terrell Park? I know what's regional, like the
Right, so regional would be like Terrell Park. That's a perfect example of a regional where you're trying to attract people from all over. A community park might be like a Rogers.
Okay, I got that.
Where you have a lot more amenities and you're attracting from a larger area. And then a smaller, smaller park might be.
The Forest Park.
Forest Park or Leffler.
Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights.
Okay,
So it's more like walkable.
I got you.
Again, we're anxious to show you all this plan.
Okay, there are about 9 or 10 of these that we're going to go through. This is our second. So I'm going to call this then, for now, a maybe. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to leave this in the maybe column. Okay. P4, community park in the south end. And maybe, do you want to just each time like give a 5-second description?
So the community park in Ward 4 right now is proposed to be next to the Theodore John Library. So community park in South End right now is destined to be next to the library off of Sarah Street. So that property has been identified, but we don't own the property yet. You'd have amenities like any of your community parks.
I'll put it in. I'm gonna put in. How many
I don't know if you can say community park really is the size of acreage, it's the amenities that you have inside of the park. It's your small little neighborhood parks, or like your forest park, with just your regular little small playground, small footprint. South End is going to be a larger footprint, several acres.
10 acres?
I'm not sure on the acreage that's been identified there or not, but I doubt if it's 10 acres.
Rogers Park, 10 acres?
I don't like that.
I think a little over 10.
I ain't feel it.
Is this considered community park? This park space?
Really, just because it's downtown, you would call it that. We really don't have a neighborhood that's located. But it's one of your smaller parks.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. All right, unless somebody objects, I think this is it. Well, let's see. All right, good, interesting. All right, so I think this is also a maybe, right? Clearly there needs to be some discussion on this. There's no, I would say, unless any objects, no clear consensus on this, okay? Next. P5, renovation of park restroom facilities. And do you want to give them just a 5-second version, renovation of park restrooms?
How do we need elaboration on the restrooms?
So our park restrooms, most of them are all old and need updating, not just painting on the exterior, interior, but also your new, plumbing and everything needs to be changed inside of those. It's throughout our park system.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
So throughout the park system, so we seem to be moving towards, there's certainly some maybes, but we've got more than 2/3 saying put it in the bond. So with y'all's permission for now, doesn't mean this is the end of the discussion, but for now I'm going to move this over to Tier 1. Anybody have a heartburn about that? No. Okay. Next, Kara.
There we go.
Yeah, making progress.
Yeah.
New neighborhood park pavilions. So is it spread across the system?
Spread across the system. We've put in 2 new pavilions in the last year or so, but we have at least, I think, between 16 and 18 older pavilions that need to be replaced.
Does this include, in installing a pavilion at a park that may not have one, or is this just replacing those that exist?
Replacing those that exist.
And it, like at Gladys, putting one over Rogers Park, correct?
Putting one,
Rogers Park does not have a pavilion in that case, correct?
it has a pavilion.
They do?
It's one of the newest ones we put in, is the Rogers Park and Sprott Park.
Not over basketball.
Oh, you're talking about over the basketball
Yeah.
court? That's not the particular type of pavilion. This is more of a picnic pavilion, gathering space.
Okay,
Out on
so I had
top
to
of
wrap my
basketball.
mind around that, because my mind was the basketball courts.
That's
That's
some,
a line item.
And to repeat, you said this is.
No, I got that. That's why I need to make sure. Pavilion is like, what have the birthday parties and stuff?
correct.
Okay, I got you now.
And it does not include any where there are none today. It's replacing old ones.
All right.
How many are you replacing?
16.
16?
Yep.
Got a few people to vote on this one. Anybody? Again, also, if it's not voting for you for some reason, raise your hand, and I won't help, but somebody who might really be useful will. All right. You know, we're divided over 1 and 3, and there's a lot in maybe, so I would say keep this in tier 2. Are we good with that?
Yeah, all right.
All right. Next, P11, Terrell Park. So big, what you're calling a regional park, right? So, and it's the one that you showed that has the park master plan that's been developed.
That's correct. So yeah, it's basically upgrading Terrell Park to be a regional facility. Estimated cost is right around 19 million.
Question, does that include drainage?
That includes drainage.
Question for you. You're going to have major projects, and did you include for the roadway repair or rehab or reconstruction?
That's included as well.
But this number does not include the revitalization of the golf course itself.
No, that's separate. That's separate.
So you have street and drainage? I mean, the roads and drainage?
Yes, sir.
And just to clarify, this one's never been on a previous CIP, right?
No. This is totally new out of the parks master
No.
plan.
Yeah, this came out of the Parks Master Plan.
So did everybody hear that? This is the big regional park. It's come forward from the Parks Master Plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we've got 15. Listen, there's not unanimity, but again, we do have 2/3. So for now, I'm going to, unless somebody really objects, I'm going to move this into tier 1. You get another shot at it. Those of you who've got concerns about it get another shot, but we'll put it in tier 1 for now. Next. Athletic complex number 4 and field conversion.
Actually, Jimmy could probably speak a little better to this than me.
Yeah, good point.
So what you have here is at the softball complex, we've got 4 pods of fields, each with 3 fields. Complex 4 is our largest. It was the one that was recently upgraded, which is about 1994, I believe. And what we're trying to propose here, or what we are proposing, is to turf those 3 fields. Those fields would be large enough to host baseball, 13 and up, in addition to the softball games that take place during the week with our adult league and also softball tournament play. But this would be designed to give us, as a city, turf fields. Ford Park is owned by the county. You guys know how busy Ford Park is. That's 12 and under. This would give us the opportunity to go 13 and up, potentially even getting into high school, depending upon the size of the fields that we could do so. But this would give us full synthetic turf, really something beneficial.
Does it generate revenue?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It would. This is something that we could use. CVB would be able to speak to this more probably thoroughly than I would, but honestly, this would probably pay for itself within 2 years, easily.
That's good.
With the heads and beds and all the people that will be coming through and utilize, especially weekend play, absolutely it would.
Them softballs? See, that's what I need.
On average, on any given weekend, for the baseball tournaments that Jimmy mentioned at Fort Fields, it's 100-plus teams that come to town. With those fields being extended, and with the age group, we can host another 30 teams. What that equates to is like 250 room nights per day, so 500 room nights over the weekend, 900 people in town. With 30 people, close to $150,000 a weekend. So it'll pay for itself.
How's that parking kind of increase?
Can you change your vote?
Question.
Once it's in?
I voted prematurely
She
before I
didn't
heard
have
all
all
the
that information.
Can you,
Well, we gonna win
Gentlemen,
anyway.
yeah,
It's okay.
yeah.
73.
I changed my vote.
Yeah. All right, we'll note it. And it looks like we do have pretty strong, great, and we do seem to have some consensus, at least at this point, for moving this one into Tier 1. All right, 17. Yeah. You talked about this earlier, but refresh everybody.
Well, is this, what,
Me neither.
which is this doing? Is this giving us option 1, option 2, or option 3?
That's a good question.
It says right here.
Because if it's giving us option 1, I don't want to push you for it.
19.
Yes, absolutely. This is something, what did you tell us a couple weeks ago that we could try to convince, but whatever the term was, I'll try to convince you. Got your hand up? Educate, not intimidate, maybe? Mr. Parigi, what do you have for me?
Educate, not advocate.
If we were to do this, but all of my friends that go to the country club, play golf, would they want to go here?
They would be at our place on Monday, that's for absolutely sure.
Danny Dakotas of the world.
Dan Dakota's never going to leave Beaumont Country Club.
He's not going to go to Terrell Park.
He's
Hey, Jimmy, you know this meeting is recorded, right?
absolutely, and I'm
Okay.
perfectly
Stand on
prepared
it.
for that.
Okay.
I think Mr. Dakota would definitely show up on Mondays because the country club's closed on Monday. So he would be there, and as a matter of fact, I believe he's probably snuck out there a few times without people knowing.
I just cannot tell.
Sir,
I was going to ask, does this golf course generate revenue as well?
it does. It's not going to generate the revenue to get that money back. It's
Right.
golf course that's run by a city that's a municipality or a municipal golf course is more quality of life. We're not going to be able to charge $200 a round to be able to try to generate the money. A good example of a project that took place that was even designed by the group that has presented our design is Landa Park in New Braunfels. If you've been to New Braunfels and you've floated the river, you've been at Schlitterbahn, you look across the river from Schlitterbahn, that's the golf course. That's a city-owned golf course that was doing 20 to 30,000 rounds per year. Now they're pushing 55 to 60. The upgrade that they did was not to the extent of what we're looking to do.
Right.
But you've essentially doubled your number of rounds. It's, I don't want to call it a no-brainer, but it's pretty special.
Yeah, I don't really play golf myself, but since we're investing in Terrell Park, it makes sense to me that this golf course is a major attraction. I noticed that people from outside of Beaumont tend to come. It really does bring in people from surrounding areas. And I also read some reviews online. It looks like it's in really, really rough condition. So
It's it needs the work. It needs a facelift. It needs the work.
And I just want to be clear, what we're talking about isn't necessarily the $19 million version, but
No, what we're proposing here is the 19. That's what we're voting here.
What we're talking about right now is the full meal deal, right? The real renovation and the $19 million. Now, if this is in the maybe category, we may come back and talk about, well, do you want to take a smaller bite or something?
It's in maybe.
I was just curious, what do you think y'all would go with the charge for a round?
Well, that would be something that we would definitely reach out to outside sources that are going to give us their information and their recommendations. We went up last year, as a matter of fact, to where on Saturday with a golf cart, you're paying $40. That's still unbelievably low price to play around a golf on a weekend with a cart. What we're proposing is this would be the first time that we would have a resident versus non-resident fee. That's something we haven't done yet. Most municipalities do that for their golf courses, especially one that's going to get this type of upgrade. That would be something you would see for sure.
So you still want to make it affordable for your citizens.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's not going to, we're not looking at charging 75, 80 bucks for a citizen to go out there and play. That's not what we're looking to do. Again, it's a quality of life. It's not.
That's the point I was alluding to. You have to make it affordable for the citizens.
Yes, sir.
Continue to go out there and play.
Yes, sir.
Or fall through the cracks in the hole.
Hey, Jimmy alluded to something else that some of you are new. I talked a lot about in the first meeting, a little bit about last meeting. You know, one thing that's important to note is that we're, as outside consultants, we educate but do not advocate, right? And when we put up stuff on the website, we want to have stuff that people can understand, that help people make informed decisions. The same with you all. Our job is not to advocate. Inside this room, I hope everybody feels comfortable advocating for what you feel is right. But then if you decide to go forward with a bond, then it becomes a really big deal. The city cannot advocate by saying, hey, citizens, you should pass this. It's really important. We need to pass this. What the city can say is, here's what the committee's recommended and what the council's decided to put forward for you to vote on, and here's why. Here are the reasons, but not go out and try and persuade voters one way or another. Okay. Next, so we had that was going to go into the maybe category, I think, pretty clearly, right?
Maybe.
It's maybe.
So maybe comes up, we have some more discussion, we can talk more about numbers there. And I know that it's getting late. We've had lots of good questions and discussion. Well, so I'm moving fast just to try and get y'all home. Slow me down when you want to. All right. Trails Master Plan. Do we need a little, just a reminder on the Trails Master Plan?
That's not a lot of money.
Well, this is also to link up the two existing trails that we have now, as well as any other trails that will come about in the city. If you go into a lot of your newer cities around the area who have trails throughout their city, they usually link up where you can basically travel miles.
Is this at Terrell Park?
Yeah, what are the trails, I think is the question I have.
Like the hike and bike, is that?
It's the hike and bike trails.
Okay.
Linking those up as well as incorporating other trails throughout the city if they can't be linked up.
And it would be good to know the locations of these too, like when we're talking about it.
That is included, yes.
Tell us where it is, Ted.
Where are they?
Coach wants to know.
Folsom and Phelan,
Got you. Got you.
that's the two main trails that we have now.
Got you.
Other questions about this one? All right. Well, there's not a lot of undecideds on this one. All right, there's not many of you who voted maybe, but there's just a very bare, not even quite a majority for it, and there's a lot against it, so I'm going to suggest we move this for some more discussion. Does that work for everybody? Keep it in the maybes. All right. Next, facilities. So again, I'm going to apologize. We sent the file over to him, but it didn't get printed, so we'll give you a quick reminder as we move on to facilities of what each of these is.
Yeah.
Joey's going to have to, somebody's going to have to do a tap dance. It looks like we're having, there we go.
And you're going to send us the third sheet?
Yes, we will. And after this meeting, we will send you, before the week is out, a summary of how all these voted so that you know what's in Tier 3, Tier 2, and Tier 1. That way, you want to think about it, you want to drive by and see something, you've got a chance to do that. So, what do we have first there, Kara? F1 is the, animal care.
We don't have it. Do you have
Did every,
No.
there you are, couldn't find you. Just a reminder.
Yes, it's the Animal Care and Adoption Center to increase the space and give us more capacity and to betterment of the animals.
What number is that? I don't see that.
Joey, do you have those numbers? Do you have the numbers? Can you pull up the numbers on animal care?
$6 million, Sammy.
It's in here.
6.9 million. 6.9 million.
Yeah, 6.9. I need to know what you got. I feel for it. 6.9.
Sure. Hold.
I don't have.
No, this is the one that I was saying. We sent them. We.
It's not fair to animals. It's not fair to them. We're not looking at it. We're basing on all the information. We're looking up there and then voting and everything.
Sammy, you're winning. Calm down. You're winning.
You got it, Sam.
But you're winning.
I hadn't even voted yet.
I agree.
Well, my apologies. And we sent a 3-page file to the printer, and we picked it up before the meeting, and they didn't have it, and I regret it.
I regret it. That's funny.
So we have 64% for this. So for now, right? I'm going to move this into tier 1. Everybody good with that? All right. What's next? Fire station number 4. Fire station number 4. So you saw a presentation briefly on that earlier, but
What's the amount? It's Lucas and Gladys.
can Joey and Kara, can y'all give that amount?
Gotcha.
6.6 million, including contingency.
Yes.
Or are we going to buy out some houses?
The goal would be for it to get relocated.
Could it not be built on the same location?
It's not big enough
I
for
know,
the
tear that one
expansion.
down and rebuild it there?
John, that's right.
It would,
right.
it's been stated that it,
It's not big enough. Nah, there's nothing else.
Lucas and buy further down, there's some land.
Across from Wells Fargo.
that, we haven't identified where we'll be building that, but it's too small currently for us to build on that current location. Because in that current location, it would have to be built as a 2-level fire station, and that's
I think John
not
and I both
adequate.
agree it's in a good
And they need increased parking as well.
So did everybody get that? It's to rebuild or relocate the fire station, larger, improved, but likely in a different location. No location has been determined.
Behind that fire station and you could put a restaurant or something for parties.
But it would be in
All right. We've got, so 71%, so we're going to keep that in tier 1, right? Okay. Next, and why don't you give the amount to?
There's no more. It says thanks. That's it.
That one stays in tier 1. Oh, yeah, that's it, right?
So I have a question. One
Yes.
of the ones that we talked about earlier was a new police station, and I would like to have that discussed.
Okay, and so let me put this to the group. We have a few things. We want to talk about tier 3s that might come up, specifically police station. There may be others that you want to call. Would you prefer to talk about that now while it's fresh, or do you want to have some time to absorb, go home, and that be the top of the agenda next meeting? Well, we're happy to stay. I know we've kept you a long time.
Is it just one quick vote?
I'm not going to be here next meeting. I'd like to
Let's
talk
say
about it.
next meeting. Yeah. Show of
Yeah.
hands next meeting.
I mean, we just talked about fire station. I'd say let's just do it now.
Yeah, do it
How
now.
much,
Let's do
how
it
much
now
are we
while we're
talking?
here.
How much money? What are we talking?
Is the fire station or the police station we want to talk about?
75
We can
million
talk
right
about
here.
both of them.
He said police.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think I heard you say, do you want to go home? I saw a lot of people saying they kind of want to talk about it now. But so let's say, can we do police station, and if there's one more you want to do now and anything else, maybe we'd say we'll move to the next
We
meeting?
can do both of them. We can do both of them.
Okay.
Go ahead and second it.
All right, so you want to talk about fire station, I mean, the police station again, really briefly, do you have the dollar amount?
Let's just get it over with.
75 million. 75 million. So, new police station, modernized, $75 million.
So now, have we found a location for it? Is it gonna still be downtown?
Location, where would it be?
We don't have a location as of right now. It was an idea that was initially thought as being future consideration, but the goal would be for it to be downtown, typically, because that's where, you know, you would like to be safest. So that's where the goal would be, to be downtown. But a location has yet to be determined as of yet, because we would have to do acquisition of land, et cetera, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, police station, yes.
75.
Right now, it's serving twice as many people as it was originally designed to actually accommodate.
That's correct.
So you saw just a reminder, you heard some of that, but the police station right now is old. It's housing more people than it was originally intended to house. It's also one of your bigger ticket items at $75 million. They don't know where it would be located. No location has been determined, but the goal would be somewhere in the downtown area.
So if we don't know where it's going to be, there's no land cost calculated into this.
Is there a land cost in that number?
It is in that number, but it's just estimated as of right now. So it's just the estimate. So what we have now is just the estimated cost. But it is calculated in there.
And there is also some contingency built in.
75 million.
So, any more questions or discussion about the police station?
It needs to go in the maybe space.
We don't have a.
I'd like to see it in the maybe, because they put it in 3 right now.
Okay, we don't have it set up because we weren't sure about that one. So let's just go around the room and. Pardon?
Why is it in tier 3, June?
Yeah, the reason it's in Tier 3 is because in our CIP, we have it in future years consideration outside of that 5-year window. But we could always move it up if this advisory board wishes to put this on the ballot. We'll end up moving it up to year 2 or 3 in the CIP based on what eventually comes out of this board recommendation.
It could be separate from.
It could be, for example, you could decide to have that be a standalone proposition.
What do we lose by doing that?
What do we gain by doing that?
But you let the voters decide.
What do we gain by doing that?
I think look, just based on experience, you can all make your own discussion. I'd give you my version of the pros and cons. Like pros, you're thinking about anyway, it's out there, you put it out to voters right now and you get an answer. Cons, what's going to be talked about in the media and in the public to some extent is the total amount of the bond. No matter how many times you say, well, they're all propositions you can choose, it's going to be the news as the city has called a $500 million bond issue or whatever number that is, right? So that's going to, some people are going to see that and have sticker shock. That's really the issue.
But they're going to have just as much sticker shock when they find out we're going to spend $60 million at Terrell Park.
You got to make that decision for yourself, right? That's right. Cumulative. And I think as you're going through the ballot, I would say if you've got 20 bond propositions, we see frequently, then there's, Austin is an example of a city that does that sometimes. Then you get voter fatigue. You see at the proposition 18, 19, and 20, people just quit voting. It's not that they vote no or yes. Some will just start saying, well, I'm no on everything else. I've already given the city a whole bunch. Some will just say, I'm out of here, man. But, look, that's not the end of the world either, right? That's for you guys to wade through. All right. So we're not doing Mentimeter. We're back to the old-fashioned way now. So can I get a show of hands of people who want to leave this in 3 for now? If you want to leave it in 3, meaning we're not going to talk about it again, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're recording this? So we got 6. 6 and 3. If you want to leave it in if you want to leave it in maybes, it needs more consideration.
I'm gonna change my vote. I'm gonna go with the maybes.
Okay, so we're back to 5. We're 4 for no, 4 for threes, 4 for threes, Kara and Joey, and then maybes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and ones. Anybody? Tier 1. I think that we miscounted somewhere when we were changing, but I think
We'll start all over again.
Well, I think we had at least 10 people saying keep it in tier 2. So if that's okay, we'll just say it's in tier 2. Sorry. Thank you. Move it from 3 to tier 2.
Correct.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Are you moving that in the anticipation of it possibly being a separate issue all by itself?
Moving that so that so that we will have further discussion, and then then you all can decide if you want that to be a standalone proposition.
So what are we going to do that with the other tier 3s?
So what I would like you to, if there's anything else, we said we do just 1 or 2. If there's anything else that somebody already knows you want to move, bring it up now. If not, what I'd like you to do is look at that tier 3 list, and if there's something you want to move up, that's something we'll address at the next meeting. Now, we're going to also have a little bit of homework. So with your permission, then, we're going to move on for tonight, right? And then, I've lost the clicker. Kara, can you advance that? So you have a little, we will give you some homework. And first, I want to mention what's coming up, right? Just a reminder, that's in your packets. Do the new members have the old, I know it's available on the website, but the new members, do you have the PowerPoint presentations from last time? No. Okay, they are on the website if you want to glance through those. And I want to reiterate, I think we sent a note to all the new members, but just one more time, if you would like to, we sent you a couple dates. We're going to, I think for most of you, we didn't hear back, but we'll send out again if you'd like it. You don't need it. I think you've kind of gotten caught up, but we'd be glad to do a quick session on what meetings 1 and 2. You've probably kind of gotten the sense of it. We're glad to cover that for you if you'd like. And then here's what's coming up. So deep dives. It's deep dive 2 and 3, but it's really meeting number 4 on June 9th. We're going to do the same thing on roads and sidewalks. Then there's not quite as many, and roads, drainage, and sidewalks. But a lot of those projects are covered elsewhere. They start off in Tier 3. Just give you that heads up. A lot of those start off in Tier 3 because there are other potential funding sources that the city's identified.
Here we go.
There are a few big items that'll be in there. So we'll be talking about on the 9th, and we'll also follow up on issues from this meeting. Then on the 25th, we'll be talking about downtown development and some of these other big standalone projects. And we'll be prioritizing between these. Okay, you know, as we talk about, well, do you care more about this park or this police station? We'll be talking about some of those issues before we go to the open house. We're going to be sending you some homework this time. So we're going to send several things out to you. We will follow up with the results from tonight's meeting, okay? So that you can look at that and cogitate about whether you still agree with it, right? Does it look good? Is there something you want to go visit? We'll also have some follow-up questions, and we really will kind of dig into it after this meeting, but we'll have a few follow-up questions. Maybe one might be, is there something from Tier 3 that you want to move up? Now that you've looked at it, we may ask you to prioritize among those things that we voted for. We'll have several follow-up questions for you to get ready for next meeting. What else would be helpful to you all? Would you like we can send you a list. You know, now that the city has presented its CIP to the city council, staff has presented to the council, we could send you in advance the list of roads and sidewalks, for example, that we'll talk about next meeting.
Yeah, that would definitely help.
So we'll get that out to you. The city, I think, is working on getting you parks maps as much as possible and access direct links to the parks plan so that you can go and look at that if you want to and check back in on some of these. What else?
So I have a question, and maybe you guys discussed this in one of the first two meetings, but is there a rush on this thing?
So the deadline is the city, by law, the city has to call the election by August 18th. So we're trying to get it to the city council. Our goal is to get to the city council so they have 2-3 weeks to look it over, have a workshop session, have some time, two weeks to a month to look it over. And we want to get in a town hall meeting in there in kind of July. So we're trying to report back to the city council by late July.
So, I mean, this thing, just from my personal opinion, just feels extremely rushed. Is there any reason why this can't be done in May?
That's really up to council and staff. I will say we've done this in a lot of cities, and we've seen cities take longer, but we've also seen a lot of cities take less long. So I think it is a lot of information, and you guys, just by the nature of your elections here, you've had a little bit more turnover in the committee maybe than we see in some cities. So I think what we're offering, if it's helpful, is to catch anybody up. And I don't want to speak for the city, but I think if you get to a point where you really feel like, hey, this really is too rushed, and I'm not having a chance to make good decisions, I would think the city would want to hear about that. But there's a lot of work to be done, but I think you'll see, we'll begin to get to this place where the universe of projects is becoming much smaller, much faster, if you really think about even what we ruled out tonight.
Wasn't there something about they're changing the rules for bonds or something?
Yeah.
There are several bills before the legislature. The session ends in 3-4 days. The last I heard, I talked to your bond counsel just a week ago. He's tracking those. Kara's tracking some of those too. I know they were continuing to move. In other words, they had not died in committee. They were still alive, but in that last week, all kinds of things get passed and all kinds of things die. And those bills would change the rules for cities. For example, one of them would require a 2/3 majority for a bond to pass. Several others really change the way cities address bonds. I would say most of those make it harder to pass bonds. Kara's been tracking that closely. We've been talking to your bond counsel. So if you heard her, we'll report back to you next meeting. The legislature will have closed down unless there's a special, and we'll report back on what's passed there. Mr. Chairman, I think that concludes our show for the evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Listen, I'd like to thank Gap Strategies for the effort and what you're putting in and getting us kind of educated on what's going on. And more importantly, the city of Beaumont. Thank you guys again, and the members of this committee for doing what you do. Thank you so very much. And at this time, the meeting is adjourned.